I
No,
don't want to
they-
take any of yours.
They had gone home because Carl had
Guys.
actually gotten a
We're
bouncy
on.
house and stuff.
Steph, we're on.
which they
Oh,
put
we're
up.
on. Okay. Not good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to the June 11th Board of Selectmen meeting. Sorry, Select Board, I'm not used to saying that. Select Board meeting. This meeting will be broadcast live and recorded by Foxboro Cable Access. Today, we're meeting to have interviews for new town council. So, do we do the pledge and everything for every meeting? Should I do
May
the
as
pledge?
well.
Yeah, okay. Might as well do the pledge. Mark, will you lead us in the pledge?
Sorry. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just Steph, since it is a first meeting, you should at least mention citizens' input. Is there anyone here? for-
Exactly. Is there anyone here for citizens input? Katie, anybody online for citizens input? Okay, we'll make sure we cover all the bases, right?
Exactly.
All right, exactly. Okay, so we're starting with Harrington Heap today. So we have some gentlemen in front of us representing that we're going to be interviewing with. Can you introduce yourselves to everybody?
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Chris Brown.
I'm Tom Harrington.
And Chris Eep.
All right.
And maybe mention who we are.
Oh, exactly.
Since they don't really know us.
Exactly.
I'll just say,
I'm just making sure. Chris Heap, Tom Harrington. All right, and one more time?
Chris Brown.
Chris. I knew there was a second Chris there. Okay, awesome. I'm just making sure so I can make sure I address you by your name. Okay, so obviously you're here in front of the Foxborough Select Board. My name's Stephanie McGowan. I'm the chair.
Bill, you're the vice chair, we met before.
Yep.
Mark Elfman, you haven't met me yet, but
Nice to meet you.
Debbie Giardino, clerk.
Nice to meet you.
And then we have Katie's right-hand man over here.
Katie's been helping us out, getting us everywhere we need to go. So
and our fourth member is Dennis, but he's
Yes.
watching, but
Oh.
he's not,
I forgot to ask. I knew
Yeah.
Dennis was not going to be
Yeah.
here. Dennis is definitely on live. Dennis, can we hear you? Can you hear us?
he might not be Zooming, but he is watching.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
All right, perfect. Okay. All right. Okay, so, of course, we've come up with a list of questions that we're going to ask everybody who comes before us. So, and everybody knows we've got, during our prep meeting, we assigned everybody a question. So what we'll do is, as some of the questions we know you might answer into a bullet point we had behind it, if we can, so we may skip a question as we go along based on if it's already been answered. No use to ask it a second time. So, okay, so I'll start. So our first topic is legal expertise. And our question to you is, please give us some background on your firm and why you believe you would be a good legal partner for the town of Foxborough.
all right, so I'll start and just, to give you kind of a general introduction as well. Thank you for the opportunity for us to meet with you here today. As I said, my name is Chris Brown, and I am the proposed lead on our proposal to the town of Foxborough. I have been a partner with our firm now for several years, and before that, I was a partner at a firm in Framingham that also did municipal law. I have been practicing for about 19 years as an attorney, 14 of that in municipal law. And like all the other attorneys at my firm, I have extensive experience in what you might describe as generalist municipal work, which would be, advising officials about open meeting law, public records, ethics, drafting and interpreting charters, bylaws, and ordinances, policies, that type of stuff, preparing for and attending town meetings, many of them. We're just through our season, so it's been a busy few months. And also just, obviously helping to answer the questions that come up every day in the cities and towns that we represent, which I can tell you, doing this for as long as I have, that there's no 2 days are the same. There's always new things coming up. But also, like the other attorneys at my firm, we all have kind of niche areas of expertise within municipal law that complement each other. My particular experience is in all aspects of labor and employment law. That's everything from arbitration to collective bargaining to everyday advice, as well as various types of litigation and everything in between. I'm also very well versed in contracts and procurement. Like your procurement officials, I've attended the Inspector General courses. I've received all the same training they have, but I have the additional legal training as well, which has made it possible for me to, draft and negotiate a wide variety of contracts. I've advised on complex and unique procurement issues in a variety of different areas, and also assisting towns with issues and challenges to their procurement procedures, whether it's a protest on an individual procurement or trying to help them figure out an efficient and effective way to get something that they need, whether it's a project done or something, or good or something like that. And I also, before I did municipal law, I was a insurance defense attorney, so I did litigation for 5 years. And owing to that, I picked up a lot of experience in construction litigation, which I've carried over into my public practice, where I now have a lot of experience advising public owners on complex, large construction projects, whether it's in the planning stage before, helping with the procurement process, whether it's during a project, if there's issues with the contractor or things of that nature, and after the project is done, where maybe there's issues that manifest with your building or your public works project, and things have to be followed up with the contractor or the designer. So that's what I bring to the table, and I'll hand it over to Chris to talk about his experience.
Great. Thank you. So I'm Chris Heap again. I joined the firm in 2005 after spending a year clerking for a judge on the Massachusetts Land Court. So I've been with the firm since then, since 2005, and have been practicing entirely municipal law ever since that time. I am currently serving as town council in Needham, where we took over as lead town council in 2020 after several years there working on various projects in town on a special counsel basis. But we've been lead counsel there since 2020. So in that capacity, I'm primarily responsible for all of the legal work that comes in through Needham, town meeting, general town government, open meeting law, sort of all of the stuff that you would regularly expect a town to, all the legal work you'd expect a town of that size to be generating. So that's a substantial portion of my practice currently. And in addition to that, I also serve as the leader of our firm's land use practice group. So I'm in the other towns where I'm not the lead town council, I also have responsibility for making sure we're taking care of all of the land use, zoning, subdivision, building department work that comes in. So for all of those other towns, I'm in close contact with the planning directors, ZBA, planning board chairs, building commissioners, helping them work through all of the interesting or controversial applications that are coming in through the sort of daytime government processing of the application, reviewing enforcement requests, helping the boards through hearings locally, and if it comes to it, helping defend any litigation that comes out of the sort of local permitting practice in our various towns. In addition to me, that practice group in our firm has several other dedicated land use attorneys who are doing basically full-time land use work for our various towns. That includes 2 other former land court law clerks who spent time working for the judges over there. So we've got, in addition to a general broad array of expertise on the general municipal side, we also have several attorneys working full-time on the land use work that is being generated by our various towns.
Tom?
Sure. Again, I'm Tom Harrington. So I've been at the firm since 1990, and I serve as lead counsel in Wellesley, Littleton, Carlisle, Norfolk, and Templeton. You had asked what makes us why we think we're a good fit for this town. And I think it's one of our strengths is we're not too big and we're not too small. So we're big enough in that we have expertise in just about every issue you're going to face. We have wetlands experts, we have labor experts, we have zoning experts. We've done lots of town meetings, so we're well versed in the process of running a town meeting and getting you ready for a town meeting. so we're not too big, but we're not too small either. And so frankly, Foxborough would be a really important client to us. We'd be pleased to have you. We'd be honored to serve as your town council. And you would have an important status in our firm. We're choosy about the towns we pick. We essentially only do town council work, but we're at 15 towns right now. We have 12 attorneys. We like that ratio. We think we have room to add a few more towns, but we don't apply to every town council job that comes out there. I think what makes Foxborough a good fit for us is you're a well-run town. You know, we have clients in the area. Everyone talks to everyone. We know you to be a well-run town. I think we fit well with that. I think we have a skill set that would enhance the town and that the town can use. We don't like to be just kind of answers at the end of the computer, right? So if you're looking to email out a question and get an email answer back, there's lots of firms that do that. That's lots of firms that do that well. We do that well, but we want to take the next step with you. We want to kind of bring our expertise to bear and help you move in the direction that you would like to move in. And I think you'll see in our proposal, you know, the way we work is we have a town expert, which will be Chris Brown. So he's going to be the Foxborough expert. So he's going to understand what's going in all aspects of Foxborough, so that if we get a question from this side of things, we understand from that side of things how things are, you know, the subtlety to the question, and how we might be able to help strategize a better answer for you. So in short, I think that's what we bring to the table. I think Foxborough, again, would be a great town for us, and I think we could serve you well.
Thank you.
I think you may have kind of touched on this, but maybe a little bit more. Please describe your approach to managing municipal law issues for your clients.
Sure. You know, I think what sets our firm apart is, you know, our philosophy of client management. My background in particular, I grew up in northern Vermont, and my parents were business owners. So as a kid, thanks to the child labor laws, I had a job on Saturdays and school vacations and summer breaks and stuff. But I think what that instilled in me was a real customer service philosophy to everything that I've done in my adult career. And I bring that to my practice as an attorney as well. I think the vital part of your relationship with your town council is just that you can trust them. You know, you're not always going to like what we have to tell you, but you should be able to trust what I tell you, or what Tom or Chris or any of our other attorneys give you for advice has been, you know, properly vetted, properly researched, and is correct. The other thing is in trusting someone is that when you pick up the phone, they're going to be there. You know, I mean, every town that I am in, and I'm in Blackstone as lead town council. I am also in Grafton as lead town council. The town manager, the town administrator, the chair of the select board, they have my cell phone number, okay? I realize that municipal law is a 24-hour-a-day business, right? And questions can come up at one of your meetings, you know, in the middle of the night when you have a water main break and you're trying to figure out, you know, I have a procurement question, although you could wait till 7 a.m., but that's okay, right? You know, so I'm available. I think that's the thing that I think sets me apart. You know, and I'm going to respond. You know, we have a policy in the proposal that it's, you know, within 24 hours we'll respond to any email. You know, even if it's just to tell you, you know, this is kind of a heavy question, like we're going to need a little time to look into it. But I'm getting back to you. I'm touching with the client to say, look, like we've acknowledged your email, we got it, so you're not wondering, well, when are they going to get back to us? You know, that's not the way that we operate. The other thing I would say is that, you know, I know that your town council that you've had now, Mr. Costello, you know, great attorney. I have a lot of respect for him. I did take over for him in Blackstone, where he retired a little bit earlier than here. He retired 3 years ago there. I've taken over for him there, and I think, you know, the best asset I have to sell you on why we're a great fit for you is my clients. Like, talk to them. They will tell you that, you know, many of them have dealt with multiple town councils in their career. I am by far, I think, my own unobjective opinion, one of the more responsive ones. So I would love to bring my customer service aspect of practicing municipal law to help you.
Again, you've kind of touched on this, but maybe just to give it a little bit more color. In addition to municipal law, what areas does your firm excel in? And obviously, what is your strengths in labor and potentially MCAD-related issues?
Yeah, well, I think that and I will give Tom and Chris some chances to talk, I promise. The strength about our firm is that when you say municipal law, I mean, you're really talking about a lot of different things, and I think you all probably realize it as elected officials, like you've seen these things, right? But we really have the gamut from, appellate work to appellate tax board work, to zoning, I mean, A to Z, right? There is nothing in the municipal law field that someone at our firm does not have expertise in. So there's very few times I can imagine where a town has said, we want special counsel on something. Like, we have the ability to handle all of these things in-house, and that was, I think that was a major attraction, at least for Chris and Tom, to bring me into the firm a couple years ago because, of my labor and employment background, but also my public construction background too. I mean, we do have another great attorney, Jenny Merrill, who does a lot of procurement and work in that area. And Jenny and I we operate, partly as a team and partly we split amongst our clients in terms of offering that expertise. But we have dedicated members of the firm that are able to address any area. And I think that's a really good strength for us.
What is your experience with issues involving police and fire, and more specifically dealing with license to carry appeals, suitability, and alcohol?
Okay, so let me start. I'll go backwards. Start with alcohol licensing. We actually have an attorney at our firm, Ivria Fried, who is just elected the president of the MMLA for the next year. That's the Municipal Bar Association. I'm on the executive board of, by the way. And she does a lot of our licensing work. She's, I would say statewide recognized in terms of an expert in terms of marijuana and cannabis as well. But alcohol licensing, and I think we all went through the COVID pandemic and all the changing rules about, outdoor licensing and taking drinks with you and things like that. So she's well-versed in that and has been able to, help all of our clients. On the license to carry issues, both Donna Brewer, a partner of mine, as well as myself, we've handled multiple license to carry appeals. Mostly they're usually in the district court, but I have had some in the Superior Court as well. And I think we are seeing with the change in jurisprudence around the Second Amendment, that there are some legal challenges coming, I think, to the license to carry statutory scheme in Massachusetts. And it's mostly just waiting for the right case. But so that is something that we are aware of and are having to deal with. Donna and I both had appeals within the past 6 months where we've had those types of constitutional issues that were raised in that. Police and fire. Before I came to Harrington Heap, at my other firm, I did collective bargaining with the police and fire unions in Framingham for 12 years. They have a superior and a patrol officers union in both the fire and police departments. We were able to negotiate to get the police department out of civil service. So, I have experience with, all of the special legislation and things that are involved in pursuing that. I've gone to the Joint Labor Management Committee, which is the state agency where if you can't negotiate a contract with your police or fire union, you basically go to interest arbitration. And I've done that probably 4 or 5 times that I can remember. And in addition, just generally in labor, I've done many arbitrations, whether they're grievance arbitrations, whether they're about interpretation of a contract. I've done civil service appeals for bypasses for promotions, appointments, for disciplinary appeals. I do have all of that experience as well.
Thank you.
Do you guys want to say anything else about licensing or?
You
No?
covered it.
Okay, all right.
When dealing with complex zoning issues, what is your approach?
Chris?
Number one, be familiar with the zoning bylaw in town. I mean, as, you know, an incoming town council, the first thing we'd want to do is make sure we knew the zoning bylaw inside and out. Meet and develop relationships with the planner, the building commissioner, who's going to be the zoning enforcement officer, you know, on the front lines of applying the zoning bylaw to anything interesting, or that may merit enforcement. Get to know the board chairs, ZBA, planning board, and, you know, generally always be available to come out to those meetings, you know, as needed to help. You know, some boards are fully independent, depending upon the town. Some boards prefer to have town council in the room if there's going to be an interesting, complicated, or controversial application being presented. So generally, just, you know the bylaw. We very well know the zoning in terms of the state law, the case law, you know, how we think things are going to be decided if they go to an appeal to land court or to superior court. So we always have a good sense of that. But, you know, in general, just make sure we are available to and working with all of the relevant actors in town, both in terms of the professional staff and the volunteer board members who are serving at night, to help them with the project. You know, it also helps to know, you know, if there's a desired result. You know, sometimes, you know, you have to be mindful of whether an application is supported in town or generating controversy, or may have some opposition. But so there's a lot to navigate there, both in terms of, you know, the ultimate decision that's going to get rendered, making sure that the public hearing is run properly to allow for applicant, abutters, interested parties to participate and be heard by the board, and then ultimately help produce a decision that is going to, however the board wants the building commissioner or the board or whoever's in charge of making the decision, you need to produce a decision that's going to stand up to some scrutiny if the applicant or opponents or another party in interest wants to appeal it. So it's making sure you get the law right locally and at the state level, making sure the decision, whatever it is defensible, and then being available to defend it if there is a challenge after the fact.
Thank you.
I'll add a little bit to that. So I hope what you'll hear from us, when you come to us with a question, particularly on something like that, you'll ask your question, and it's our job to answer it. It's also our job to ask you, what do you want to do? Because sometimes the answer isn't necessarily related to what you want to do. So it's important to have a discussion, understand the question, and understand which way the client would like things to go. And I'll even drill down on that a little bit more. So in our towns, we actually see it as two clients that we work for both clients, and we work to make sure that everyone's in unison. And the differentiation is daytime government and nighttime government. So, you know, we serve both clients. We serve the people that are here all day, every day. They have the questions of, you know, we gotta make the trains run, and we gotta make them run on time. Nighttime government, right, it's very much policy and procedure process, and you know, heavy open meeting law, public records, what can we talk about, what can we not talk about, how do we move things in those directions. And so we want to make sure that we're in touch with both bodies, and that we're making sure that both bodies, as much as we can, are working together towards the common goal. Because it's nighttime's government to set that policy, and it's daytime government's job to push that policy forward. And so we see ourselves as kind of a conduit to both sides of things, to make sure things are working the way you want them to work.
Okay, our next topic is understanding of town issues and needs. So the question would be, what do you consider to be some of the biggest issues facing municipalities in general?
Well, I think that one of the overwhelming things that face all municipalities, at least in eastern Massachusetts, is housing. It's a major issue We've seen through the town meeting season how various communities have responded on the MBTA zoning requirements, for example. So that's certainly a major issue that we've been dealing with all of our clients, because, we've all been working on, like having to try to come up with a zoning bylaw that the community will accept, right? And it's a difficult process, and it's not like that's the only thing that's gonna solve everything either. The other thing in the housing realm we've dealt with is, the migrant housing crisis too. We have several communities that have been impacted by where the state is putting people. So, we've had to be dealing with that as well. So, I don't know, what else would you guys would say for issues that you see?
So I would add, one of the issues that I deal with more and more is interactions. Boards that are having difficulty getting along, citizens that are exercising their First Amendment rights to the extreme before boards. I'm honestly, having done this for as long as I've done this, I'm worried, because I think your job and the elected and appointed official jobs has become much more difficult and much more contentious than it was 20 years ago. And I'm concerned that you don't see very many contested races anymore. You don't see very many, like it used to be, we've got an opening on the ZBA and we've got 10 people to choose from, and it's not like that. I mean, within reason, but it's not like that. It's not the way it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago, where you just had a lot more volunteerism, and I'm worried about that, and I don't have the solution, but I do know we need to be constantly thinking about how we draw more people in to helping us run all our towns, how we keep this process going, how we protect and nurture, to an extent, our new board members so that they can succeed and feel like they're accomplishing something and not just sitting there, kind of taking pot shots half the time. So again, I don't have an answer, but I see it way too much, and it worries me.
Yeah,
Madam Chair, may I have a quick follow-up?
absolutely.
Any of the 15 communities you guys represent have any migrant housing
Yes.
pushed, forced,
Yeah, I mean,
added to their community?
we're town council in Bourne, and we were dealing with issues last summer. I mean, when the shelters were maybe, double capacity? And then we've recently had in Norfolk, right?
Right, we're town
They're
council
gonna
in
be
Norfolk,
using-
where
They're using an old state facility there, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're dealing with it.
Okay, thank you. And you know Foxborough is a community, obviously. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, next question. If not brought up in previous answer, how do you see the MBTA Communities Act impacting Foxborough?
Chris, you want to take that?
So we just touched on it briefly, but
Yeah.
how do you see the actual impact?
Well, I mean, so I know, we know that the proposed zoning was voted down fairly recently. So I think, it is, I think, an open question. The Attorney General has initiated litigation against another town that voted down litigation, Milton. So I think it's an open question what additional enforcement steps may be soon to follow at the state level for those towns that have not adopted MBTA compliant zoning. So I think for question number one is what happens next? Is there another shoe that's going to drop in terms of how the litigation happens? Now, I know that the litigation is on a briefing schedule. The existing litigation is on a briefing schedule that makes it unlikely that there's going to be any definitive rulings that are going to be of benefit to other towns before we sort of turn the calendar over to next year. So we don't really know how that enforcement's going to go, but I think it seems to me that it depends on the success or lack of success that the Attorney General gets out of that enforcement litigation, which is meant to be an example to other towns. And until we get some additional guidance, we don't know what the consequences are. I think every practitioner who does zoning work, has their own opinion about whether or not the failure to adopt MBTA compliant zoning merits the actual enforcement that the Attorney General is going after in that litigation, or whether that should be dismissed. I think there's, a feeling out there that the statute was drafted in a way that means that if you don't adopt compliant zoning, the consequence really should just be that the town has effectively decided to forego grant funding from the state, and that's should be the sum total of the consequence that the town faces for not adopting compliant zoning. Obviously, the Attorney General takes a different view. So really, I think, to me, there seems to be an open question about what is really at stake here for failure to adopt compliant zoning. But as long as that question remains unanswered by the SJC, the town's options would be to, leave the status quo as is, or to attempt to take another crack at adopting MBTA compliant zoning between now and, the first of the year. But that's obviously a policy decision for everybody that would need to be discussed and talked about.
And then you'll be finding out how to handle it once it goes forward. So quick follow-up to that. Out of the communities you represent, how many are dealing with the MBTA Act?
Well, maybe not quite all of them, but
Yeah, I think Blackstone's just out of they're not an adjacent community.
Yeah,
And we have
so-
some Western Mass communities that obviously aren't.
So say
aren't
8 or
impacted.
9?
I think our experience runs the gamut of possible reactions to the MBTA zoning. Littleton recently adopted MBTA zoning that we believe will satisfy their obligations under the statute
It failed once, failed.
after it failed the first time. Hopkinton recently voted down the MBTA zoning at town meeting, so they are in effectively the same position that Foxborough is. Needham is taking it to a fall town meeting, so we don't know what's going to happen there, but they're on a calendar that will at least allow a town meeting vote to occur before the deadline. And thinking through our other towns.
Yeah, Wellesley's an interesting situation, and it's something to watch, because in Wellesley, we submitted our bylaw to Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, and they're gonna tell you if you meet all the right standards and formulas. And so we submitted that in December. They had 90 days to review. They got us a response on the 90th day at 5 p.m., about 3 days before town meeting, which was not helpful. They had identified 8 or 9 things that they thought were wrong with our bylaw. We were able to work with them and reduce that number to, I think, 1 or 2. So we'll have to go, it was approved, but we'll have to go back in the fall to tune up a couple of things. But I think what was most interesting about that process was, and I don't mean to disparage a state agency, but I don't think they had a full grasp of what they were asking for. And when they asked for it, I don't think they had a full grasp of what they were looking at. And that became clear to me as seeing what they reviewed and being able to provide the answers. It's like, you didn't think about that? You didn't that. So I don't mean to say that there's an opportunity, but I think there's lots more information to come, particularly as they're reviewing those approved bylaws that they haven't pre-reviewed, to see what comes out of that. I think we're also in a little bit of a stay tuned to see what other information we get, and maybe we can scale back things a little bit in certain instances that might make it more palatable to town meeting.
Thank you.
Well, Foxborough has a good commercial base. The largest one, obviously, is the Kraft organization, as well as the Brigham and Women's General Hospital. Does your firm have any interactions with them, and could there be any perceived conflict of interest?
No.
No.
That's a good one.
Okay.
And just, to Bill, we've all been in communities where we have large commercial businesses that are maybe headquartered there. When I was in Framingham, BJ's, Staples, TJX, there's a whole host of them that we would deal with on TIF issues. We're gonna leave, we're not gonna leave, so I think it's something that we're all comfortable with in various degrees in the communities that we serve in. I mean, you're in Needham, you've got all the businesses on the 95 corridor too, so.
Yep, we got the world headquarters for TripAdvisor. We've got Children's Hospital building a new satellite location in town, both of which required TIF agreements, pilots, the sort of negotiation for zoning changes that would allow the developments to occur. So we've got, as Chris said, we've got experience dealing with big landowners in town, big important landowners in town, and working through the various agreements, permits, things that they may be looking for, and managing those kinds of relationships from when they're first looking to come into town, and then on into their tenure as operators within town.
One of our specialties has always been what we refer to as controversial facility siting. And that ranges from a gas-fired power plant to, big box stores or anything in between, where we've been called in as special counsel just so that, we can help the town get their hands around it, because we understand the permitting that entity is going to need at the state level and at the town level. And we're comfortable in all aspects of that, so we've often been called in as a special to guide the town through that process, whether they want to approve it with conditions, or deny it.
Thank you.
Moving into clients' communication, how do you typically manage your relationship with clients? For example, lead attorney or team approach, and why?
So we did say this in our proposal, but we have a team, and while I will be the lead, Chris and I, really, we work as a team, because there's things I do that he doesn't do, and vice versa, right? So what we've really done in our other towns is we encourage the officials, when they're contacting us, to contact both of the attorneys. Although I will be the one responsible for your town, and I will be the one making sure that emails get responded to, and, if there's questions that come up, that they get answered. We really encourage that, so that we're cutting out inefficiencies. And, if I happen to be in court one day, Chris can respond to something, or, if Chris is taking a day off, we do take vacations at some point, we can make sure that someone gets your response. I mean, the great thing about our firm is there's nothing that just one person does. We have at least two people that do every legal issue. So that is really, how we approach our client management. It's like having interchangeable pieces, except you'll always see me and Chris.
And I think that's an important point too, is that we've spoken, I think, throughout the interview about sort of the depth of our expertise in the firm. And we, as the leads, draw on that depth all the time, every day. But what we, I think, pride ourselves on not doing is allowing you guys, the town, to be fielding responses or answers or phone calls from people within the firm that you're not necessarily familiar with, in the sense that, so Chris and I are always going to be, ideally, an email with a question would go to the two Chris's. We would share that with anybody in the firm that we need help from to answer the question. If that's a wetlands issue or a procurement issue, I might turn to either Chris or another person in the firm to help out with that. But we then, digest the information, vet the answer, and then one of us will give it back to the client. So you're not fielding legal advice from people within the firm that you're not familiar with. Now, ideally, I'd say that we are small enough that it would be our hope that you guys get to know others in our firm over time, but that is sort of never forced or rushed or forced upon you, the client, in the sense that, I can imagine a scenario in which a year into serving as town council, with an alcohol licensing question, you may well want to go right to IVRIA and bypass the two of us entirely, which is at some point generally going to be okay with us. But that's a decision that you guys are making, because you've come to, learn the other attorneys and trust their expertise as well. But until sort of you, the client, elect to make those lines of communication more open, we're the ones who are going to be responding to the questions that come in from the client.
Yeah, and just to build off that too, I think that we also, as the lead and the lead team for you, I mean, we add context to everything, right? I mean, so a discrete question about this particular legal issue, there may be something going on over here that we know because we're dealing with you all the time that we can bring to the equation, and I think that's an important thing to have in your town council too, is the ability to kind of see the 30,000-foot picture of things.
We will never have the attorney of the day.
Under category collaboration and relationship building, certainly touched on this a little bit with some of the other questions, but how would you work with other town departments and officials to address legal issues and provide guidance?
Well, I mean, I think that it's, it sort of happens organically as you kind of roll out as a new town council, right? I mean, we're not trying to look to create business, but, questions invariably start to come up, and you start to get a chance to work with different officials. And I think it's important to, to really try to put the same face with that official each time, whether it's bringing in someone that I know is a specialist on a code enforcement issue, or, licensing. We've talked about Ivrius again, but, just making sure that we're bringing in the right person, but also being there so that the officials get to know not just the specialist, but obviously building the relationship with your town council. And to me, it's, I try to be early for things. So if I'm at town meeting, it's like going around and introducing myself to people. If I'm at one of your meetings, it's talking to people in the audience, whatever it is, it's just, trying to, like I said, I go back to this. This is a customer service business, and if your customers don't know who you are, you don't want to be this kind of, up in the ivory tower kind of role. I view town council as very, in the trenches. We want the officials to identify with us. I think a lot of us, again, we went through the COVID pandemic and we were all kind of on the same crisis management team. Every day we had, public health questions, legal questions, and we all had to work together. And I think that those are the types of experience we continue to have. So I think that's how we approach our relationship building.
And I'd just say that's the fun part of being a new town council in a new town, is getting to know the people who work here, and hearing from them, what the issues are, and trying to figure out how we can help with the immediate problems that are being presented, and sort of build a relationship that's gonna help both the town and us over time. It is genuinely enjoyable to get to know people in a new town, hear what they're dealing with, and try to figure out a way to help.
I think we're also gonna, just a 2-second ad, I think we're also gonna, I assume Paige is our primary point of contact, so we're gonna follow her lead. If she says DPW director needs help, run with it, then that's what we'll do. If she wants to keep herself in the middle, if she wants to be a gatekeeper of sorts, however she wants to do things is the way, we're going to provide the service. So we want to, every town is different, and we can fit into the model with clear direction. We will follow orders.
May I have a quick follow-up?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So, you've got 15 towns, maybe potentially 16, in another couple of weeks. How do you keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the town? Do you watch Board of Selectmen meeting, select board meetings, even though you might not be on the agenda and might not be on Zoom? Do you read the infamous, famous Foxborough Reporter to stay in touch? Just out of curiosity, with the other towns that you've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely tough because local media has really collapsed, I think, in the last 15 years. But, I do try to keep abreast of the important news that's happening in the communities that I work in. And I do pay attention to maybe if it's not watching like a whole meeting, like it's at least paying attention to your agenda. So if, you know, something's tipping me off. They're like, oh, hey, like, they have this licensing issue coming up. I wonder if they need our help with something, reaching out to the town manager about that. Yeah, so we do try to pay attention, I think, in that way. You know, and obviously, you know, there's regular follow-up, you know, with us, with our primary point of contact. I mean, I can't think of a week where I don't talk to every one of my town administrators or town managers. You know, even just to check in to say, hey, everything all right? Radio silence this week, what's going on, you know?
Thank you.
We actually schedule meetings, you know, so we'll have standard weekly or bi-weekly check-in meetings, just to make sure we're getting that information. And as, I don't think we did put this in the proposal, but one of the things we like to do at no cost to the town is what we call a listening tour. And that's just to help us get our feet wet, but we'd love to go visit your zoning board, your planning board, your board of health, your conscom, and just spend half an hour with them just to understand what they're working on, what they're dealing with, so we're making sure that we're not missing pieces right off the bat.
Because we realize it's not going to be, Pat's not obviously wrapping up everything on June 30th, so there's going to be some carryover.
Yeah.
Great question, Doc. Okay, ethics and integrity. Do you work with I think Bill hit on this a little bit, but do you work with adjacent communities, and if so, how would you deal with any perceived conflict of interest? I'm trying to think, who do they?
Norfolk, I think is what you
Yeah.
We do, we represent Norfolk, and we represent Wellesley and Needham. And it takes vigilance and it takes some forethought. So before we applied here, Justin Casanova Davis is the town manager in Norfolk, and I went to him and I said, we would like to apply for Foxborough. We think we'd be a good fit there, but I wasn't going to do it without his blessing, because I want, the town needs to understand. And he was okay with it. He said there's some dealings with Foxborough, but not a lot, and he thought it would work out. But there will inevitably be times when we're going to have where the two towns are at odds, and in those instances, we remove ourselves from both. We don't pick a town. We can't pick a town. We remove ourselves from both towns, and I think it's our job to make sure we identify that early in the process, so that so that if you do need legal counsel in the situation, you have time to find it, so that you can make the best decisions for the town without us slowing you down.
As a follow-up to that, do you assist in helping to find counsel that each town could have?
Yes.
We can?
Yeah.
We actually have relationships with other firms, so, because we're all gonna run into conflicts sometime.
It happens.
Yeah, we all have abutting towns, and so we have, just like, can you do this for that?
Yeah. Great.
I guess that was your follow-up.
Yeah, I'm going to read it just so it's in the record, but, can you provide an example of a time when you represented two communities and had to navigate a situation involving potential conflicts of interest? I think you're kind of addressing it, but I don't know if you actually have a particular one that you could speak to. You don't have to name the towns, but.
I mean, when I worked in Framingham, we also were town council in Sherburne. So I know we had some, I think some environmental issues happening in one part of Framingham that was going to be impacting Sherburne, and so we, just like Tom said, we basically, early on in the process for both clients, explained, these are the rules of professional responsibility that impact us as your attorney, but we're not leaving you high and dry. Like, here are two firms that can help you, or if you don't like these, like, you're welcome to find, whoever. Obviously, it's your choice. So, so that's how we handled it there.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, approach to financial relationships. What is your opinion on retainer billing versus hourly billing? When do you think one option is better than the other?
Well, before I talk about that, I did want to make sure that you did see, we had an update that we sent yesterday, which, as you know, we met with Bill and Paige a few weeks ago. I think that was one of the things we took important feedback from during that meeting, was on our rate structure. And while I think everyone agrees that the cost of doing business for everyone is getting more costly, we have attorneys that we have to pay, we have a, office space we have to pay for and such. We got together, we sharpened our pencils and figured out, how we could make it work. Because as Tom has said, and I echo, we would view Foxborough as a very important client. We thought it would be a good faith thing for us to do to just make that change to our proposal. So on retainers, which I know are a popular thing in all private and public. I think in the municipal world, I think where you see is that retainers don't always work because, it's like one side or the other seems to win. It's like you're either, having a year where you have a lot of use of the town council and, or a year where you're not using as much, or month to month, and it's hard to, I think, to gauge, particularly in a community where you've had to, one town council for so long, like really how, what the legal service need is, especially if you're combining, if you're bringing labor under one attorney, which I know is not your situation now, and there's always litigation, there's large real estate transactions, there's major zoning things that happen, which can make it really hard to approximate those types of things. It doesn't mean that there's not a way to do a retainer. I just think it's very hard to determine, at the outset of a relationship, when you're talking about a town council.
Yeah, and I guess I would add to that. We're not saying no to a retainer, but I think Chris hit on the difficulties. If it's a budgetary issue, we will never put you in a bad position financially, right? So if you tell us, hey, we got $10,000 left, we're not gonna, we'll figure out a way to get you the answers you need, the service you need, and not exceed your budget, right? We're all part of the same team. I hope we don't have that conversation every June or every May, but I have that conversation with my town administrators and town managers on a semi-regular basis. How are you doing? Tell us, tell us what you got. Tell us what you're trying to work through, and we'll make it work. We want to be a team. We want to be partners in this. But a retainer, I don't think always builds the best partnership because either it doesn't feel good to bill you too much, right? I've had retainers in the past and it's like, oh, I'm getting that much and I only billed that many hours. That doesn't feel good to me. It doesn't feel good to say, wow, I think my effective rate was $50 an hour this month. I don't want that either. We want to work with you. We want to be paid fairly and we want to give you good services. And we can get to the end in a manner that suits your needs and gets you the services with communication. To me, it's like, communication is everything. If we're talking, there's no problems. It's when we stop talking that we run into issues.
Thank you.
Anybody have any follow-up for that? No? No? Okay, so I guess, you're here, we're interviewing you, but in turn, you may be hired to represent us. Is there something that you want to ask us? Whether it's, what we didn't do, which is, maybe if we do it next time, maybe we should do it quickly, just so you know. I think even with, like, the town manager, we kind of gave a little bit about ourselves, not anything, but just like, so, okay, I said I'm Stephanie McGowan, I'm first-year chair, into my 5th year, just so maybe you know where we are here, as far as, the board has switched up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We did have a big contested race in both our school committee and Board of Selectmen this year, but in the past it hasn't been, so some of us have lingered on, but if you just want to, just tell them, what brought you here, where, how long you've been here, and...
Well, I'm a lifelong resident, actually 6th generation Foxborough, so I'm really a townie. I grew up here, my kids are growing up here, my grandkids are growing up here. I taught nursery school and then landed up at the recreation department and subsequently became the director and retired after 22 years of the recreation director job, and that was just 2 years ago. So now it's retirement time and, you know, maybe payback time, I don't know, maybe. And it's time to get involved, and I had wanted to do it the year before, and I didn't do it, and I chose to run this year. It was a great race, and I'm glad to be here, and I think that I bring some skill sets to the table that are useful in various areas of what the Board of Selectmen need to do.
I'm Bill Yukna, obviously, I'm the vice chair. This is my first year as well. I've been in town for 32 years, so I'm not a townie. But you know, my kids have been raised here, my grandkids are here as well. I've been the chairman of the building committee for the last 23 years. I've been the business manager for the last 12 years, and prior to that, I was in the private sector and private equity in a number of the companies that we owned. So hopefully I bring something to the board from the business side of things, as well as obviously the town side, having had as much experience as I've had.
Hi, Mark Elfman. I'm in my 9th year of 3rd term. Being on the board, also, like Bill, not a townie, but lived here for 35 years. Married a townie, though, like
Like
Steph
myself,
did.
yeah.
So semi-close. Small businessman, I'm a chiropractor here in town, lived in town, worked in town, practiced in town for the last 35 years. Been chair for 3 of my years on the board, 2 of those during COVID, so that was interesting, and
Yeah.
1 during town manager search, and that was kind of an interesting year also. But same as Bill, raised my kids here, both graduated Foxborough High, and love the community and love giving back, and been a volunteer at one point or another through most of my 35 years also.
All right, so we're very close to running out of time, but is there anything in particular other that you want to know from us?
I mean, I just, you asked us like what we thought, you know, were you know, the most pressing issues that are facing, I forget if it was the state or the town, but what in your perspective, you know, your town council is going to be starting July 1st. What do you see as the most important issues that your town council is working on in the next year?
Well, first of all, obviously the MBTA,
MBTA,
right? You know, because most recently, we do have contracts coming up soon, so that will be, you know, a big deal. And although Paige is doing a good job, she is a new town manager. This is her first town manager job, so, I mean, you know, I don't want to speak for her, but obviously a lot of things that'll be coming up will be new for her. She'll need, you know, good guidance, so for us to, somebody that can, you know, hit it with her, make sure, you know, she's comfortable with what's going on. So for me, I think those would be the top things. Anybody have anything else you think that's important?
No, I think MBTA obviously was the #1, you know, housing is a big issue, and the immigration issue, so keeping, you know, sounds like you guys got your finger on the pulse of what's going on with that,
Yeah.
too.
Do you have anything in particular?
I don't.
All right. All right, thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
interest. You know, just so you know, I don't know if you know our time frame, but obviously we're seeing 2 other firms today, and we will be, a week from today, next Tuesday night, we'll be deliberating at our meeting, and hopefully, we'll be picking our next town council, so I'm sure you guys will just want to watch that meeting, see what's going on.
Oh, we will.
Yeah.
And obviously, if there's any questions we can answer in the interim, you know, about our
Absolutely.
update, you know, anything else that
Yep.
you've heard or see in our proposal,
Yep.
please reach out to us. Let us
Yeah,
know.
thank you for saying that, because I was
Yeah.
thinking that, just in case something came
Yeah,
up with another
of
firm,
course.
that we would always give you you know, to circle back around if there was
Right.
something we didn't get to hit with you guys, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Great
much.
meeting you all. Good luck.
Thank you. This is interesting.
Oh, okay. fee schedule. Yeah, but I think that was huge that come back from you and,
Puts them all basically in the same boat relative to that. Not that that's, should be our issue really should be their qualifications towards,
but I think they heard you.
yeah.
You would pay, I guess. So, good point.
Oh my God, I went to a preschool graduation before this.
Have a seat, Mark.
It's just me, so I guess I could choose which chair I sit in.
There you go.
She gives us a list.
Wait a second, Doc comes back. How you doing?
Okay, how are you?
Good.
Decent weather.
Yeah, not bad.
I think it's gonna be better. I understand there's gonna be something tomorrow that's gonna attract some attention in the town.
Just a little something.
We were just discussing it out in the hall.
Not that anybody has tickets to it or anything, you know.
Apparently not, yeah. Or not that anybody can get them, right? There are a lot of signs, coming down 93 today, there are signs, and yeah, it's well advertised.
Yeah. Did a good job on it. Good.
Okay, everybody good? All right, so, on to number 2. So, this is KP Law. Mark, I hope I don't botch your name. Is it Rich? Rich, okay. Nothing like that, Rich. All right, so this is Mark Rich. Mark, my name's Stephanie McGowan. I'm the chairperson. Just so you know a little bit about us, in my first year chair, 5th year on the board. I've lived in town for 27 years. I'm not a townie, but I married a townie. And very excited to, for us, I think, Doc, other than you, Pat Costello was here when, okay. So this board, first time hiring town council, so very excited to meet with you and hear what you have to say. Deb, you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, Debbie Giardino, I just was elected to this board.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Former employee of the town for 22 years, and it was time to give back, so here I am.
Wonderful.
Excited to be here and excited for this process. Thank you for
Fantastic.
joining.
Thank you.
Mark, we've met before, obviously. I'm first year as well, but I've lived in town for 32 years. As we've stated, not a townie, sorry.
Yep.
Raised my kids here, but also my grandkids are here. And I spent 32 years in the private sector before coming to town, and actually spent the last 12 and a half years as the business manager for the school district, and the last 23 years as the chairman of the building committee. So,
Mark also, so easy to remember.
Yep.
Been in town 32 years. I'm on my 9th year of my 3rd term being on the board. Not a townie, but like Steph, married a townie. I have a small business in town. I'm a chiropractor. So I live in town, I work in town, volunteer in town, and love the community like the other 4 board members. There was a 5th board member. He's listening in, but he's not zooming in. He
Oh, okay.
couldn't make it personally here.
Okay,
Thanks
okay.
for reminding, I keep forgetting Dennis. Even though he's not zooming, he's out there.
Dennis is watching.
But I don't know if he's watching.
Yes, okay, all right, awesome, okay. So, obviously, Mark, we have a little set of questions that we're asking everybody.
Sure.
So, first topic is legal expertise. Can Can you please give us some background on your firm and why you believe you would be a good legal partner for the town of Foxborough?
Sure, thank you very much, and thank you for having me here today. This is an exciting opportunity to be here. Enjoyed the meeting with Bill, and was looking forward to meeting with you, and I really appreciate you having us back for this discussion. So, as you know, KP Law is the second iteration of Coleman and Page. Coleman and Page dates back, well over 40 years as a prominent municipal law firm. Really kind of took on the concept of putting together a firm that served municipalities exclusively and developing the expertise in municipal law. So the firm has obviously grown. We represent about a third of the municipalities in the Commonwealth. We have expertise in all areas. Our philosophy is that towns shouldn't have to, when they hire a firm, shouldn't have to look to special counsel, should be able to get all the answers through their own counsel. We run the gamut from litigation, labor and employment, and I know that that's not at the forefront right now, but it is an important part of our practice. Environmental law, land use, real estate. We don't have a private practice. We do a small amount of real estate practice. It's usually almost like favors for individuals who need some real estate background and backing. But we are, I would say, 99.8% municipal law. I personally don't practice any private law. I've been in the municipal law business for my entire practice, which is now about 36 years, so a little while. I started as in the mayor's office in the city of Everett and in the law department, and we had two attorneys in that office. I got to know the then Copeland and Page because I hired them when I was in the law department in Everett. We realized at that time that two people couldn't run everything. The business of municipal law has grown so much, and we realized that there are certain activities and cases and matters that could overwhelm an in-house law firm. And in that case, we hired Copeland and Page to do a site assignment for a solid waste facility, which was a very extensive process. And interestingly, now I do a lot of that for KP. So when my time was done in Everett, the mayor that I worked with, I was there for about 10 years. And when he was defeated in the election, it was time to move on. Obviously, in cities are very different. When a new mayor comes in, there's usually the opportunity where the mayor brings in their own staff, and I chose at that time to make a move. I contacted Copeland and Page, and they brought me on, and it was a very natural fit. I think the Copeland and Page philosophy, which is translated to KP. KP bought when Leonard Copeland and Donald Page decided they wanted to retire. And although Leonard has re-engaged in the practice, Donald Page unfortunately passed away. We put together a transition team. I was part of that team to develop a transition plan because we had two options. One was split up the band, everybody goes their separate ways, and who knows where you go, or try to keep the team together. And we thought we really had a good thing. We really enjoy everything that we do. Most of us come from a municipal practice. Lauren Goldberg, who met with you, Bill, she came from the state, from the state's election division. She was chief elections counsel. Some of us come from, like myself, from in-house in municipalities, state, federal, and we all come together because we like as we call it, wearing the white hat, representing the public sector. That's what we do. So when we transitioned, a group of us bought the firm. And so now we're almost like an owner-operated shop, where most of us, the large percentage of us, are shareholders of the firm. We have a 5-member management committee. I'm a member of that management committee who oversee the day-to-day operations. And the way we operate, just so you know, I know, Bill, you heard a lot about this, we have a primary contact system. And I know there was a lot of discussion. I did watch your two meetings on this issue because I know this is a big deal. Hiring town council is a very big deal, and I've known Pat Costello for a long time and have enormous respect for him. And I know what a good job he did for you. The way we operate, we have a primary contact system so that you have a single point of contact at the firm who manages everything for you. So you don't have that situation where you have to think about who do we call on this particular day and who's going to be answering the phone, who's going to be dealing with our business. You would have that one person who addresses your business, and in this case, that would be me. And we put together small teams so that you have backup. Joe Fair, who lives just in Walpole, he would be my backup. He and I do that for a number of municipalities and works really well. And then Jonathan Murray is listed also as land use. So he would handle your land use matters. But the idea is to have a single point of contact, a single town council. Because having done this now for 35 odd years, I know how the town council process works or should work. And the town council process should be that your town council is part of your team, part of your town, someone that you can count on, you could relate to, that you know. And Foxborough has a lot of exciting opportunities. You've got 3 major projects, about $20 million in projects that you're undertaking right now. You've got ongoing issues. You've got obviously the unique situation with Gillette and Patriot Place, and some very exciting opportunities. And so I know there was some discussion about the firm just liking to get clients and just have more towns and cities, and that's actually not how we operate. We look at each municipality as a unique entity. If you look at the references that I have in the package, and I know it's a pretty thick. Well, I don't expect that you would have read through everything in there. I looked at it and thought, wow, that's a lot. I wish we kind of could shave that down, but it's important to answer all the questions you had. And if you look at that, the clients that are listed as my references, they're clients I've worked with for 15, 20, 25 years. And each one of them will tell you, one of the things that I pride myself on is my relationship with my individual relationship with the clients. You have the firm, but I think of it, it's funny, you talk about it as being a big firm. I think of it as the small firm in the sense that you have just the limited team, the small team that's your team. You have all the other folks behind us so they could back us up with their specific areas of expertise. We have individuals who have expertise in data breaches and specific wetlands issues and harbor master issues. There's some really unique and particular areas. But you shouldn't ever have to think, who do I reach out to? And if you speak to the clients that I work with, you'll know that I pride myself in my responsiveness. Bill asked me, how do you do it? And I said, I do it. And one of the big things is I generally don't handle litigation myself. I don't handle daytime hearings. I'm available at night for your meetings, but I try to keep my schedule more open. I've done plenty of litigation. I've done plenty of hearings. I've done those procedures and matters. But if your primary counsel is tied up with litigation matters like that, they're not going to be available. When Paige calls up and says, hey, I need to talk about it, something just came up, we just had, and I think I use this example, Thanksgiving, the water line under the high school field just burst, and we've got to figure out how do we do an emergency repair, and we need you down here, and I have to say goodbye to my family and go down for that. That's what we do, and you can't do that if you're handling the litigation yourself. But at the same time, you being town council, you have to know exactly what's happening in each of these cases. You have your team behind you has to keep you constantly informed so that, again, you're the central point of contact. The buck stops with you. You're responsible. So that's kind of the process we work. And again, we pride ourselves. I pride myself on 24/7 access. I'm always available. So I think that we have a lot to offer. I understand the comments about the big firm. It's just because it's been a successful process, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I stayed with the firm as long as I have. That's why I was eager to become an owner of the firm, so that I have ownership of the product that we bring to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Please describe your approach to managing municipal law issues for your clients, your municipal clients.
It's probably a segue from the last discussion. My approach, it's very important to fully understand in any case, in any matter, the facts of the circumstances, how a matter arose, If it could be anything from a dangerous or nuisance dog hearing to a zoning, a fence dispute, a zoning matter, a landfill site assignment issue, a public construction project, public works or public buildings. It's important to have the full background from the beginning of the process, that we're not jumping in late in the process. One of the things we strive to do is to give you as much information early on so that you avoid pitfalls. So our approach is to get you informed, to get you information and materials as early as possible so that you can make good decisions, that your staff, and obviously the day-to-day process is through the departments, so that your departments have at their disposal the materials they need. One of the big things, and we talked about this with Bill and Paige, is we have a catalog of contract forms and documents that we don't strive for cookie cutter. It's not a situation where we say, do it just this way. But we do have a lot of documents and materials that we've developed over time, so that one of the things I always say to my clients, I'm sure Pat Costello said the same thing to you, and I know, Bill, we talked about this a little bit, is making sure that, especially on the contracting side, and I do a lot of public construction and contracting, 30B, Chapter 149, Chapter 30, Section 39M, Public Works projects, to make sure that you're armed with your own documents, so that when you're hiring vendors, you're hiring contractors, you're entering into big construction projects, that you're using forms and documents that are protective of the town. You don't want to be accepting vendor contracts. You don't want to be accepting outside contracts for even, I do a lot of negotiations for owners, project managers, and designers. And on the real estate side, we do the same thing with having documents that are protective of the town, that avoid situations where you're being asked to sign a contract that has illegal or inappropriate or terms that are not beneficial to the town, not protective to the town. Our goal is to be protective right from the start, so that you're forearmed, you have all those materials at your fingertips, because it's a lot easier for me to defend your position if you're starting, even forgetting the construction and contracting stuff, if you're doing hearings, if you're doing zoning and planning, special permit hearings, variance hearings, to make sure that you've gone through the process correctly, you followed the open meeting law, you followed the statutory requirements for any public hearing, that you've properly addressed the facts and issues, made a proper determination, and that your decision process is a defensible decision, properly written, properly reasoned, properly documented, so that if it is challenged, we can defend it. So we help you from that beginning, lead you through that process, and we're there with you during that process, so that at the end of the day, again, unfortunately, as you know, you get challenged, a butter's challenge, or an applicant doesn't like the denial or doesn't like the conditions on the permit, and we want to be there from the beginning to stand beside you and to make sure that the ultimate decision is one that can be defended in court.
You've kind of touched on this a little bit, but just maybe there's something to add, and that's in addition to the municipal law, obviously, that your firm, what other areas does your firm excel in? Labor, MCAD issues, stuff like that.
We deal with, with MCAD, we deal with a lot of, labor and employment. We have a full department that involves that, and Joe Fair, who's the backup, he's also an all-around municipal attorney, but he specifically is involved in labor and employment. We do a lot of hearings before MCAD and other agencies. We do a lot of training on issues that have to do with discriminatory practices, and especially right now with diversity issues, and we believe heavily in the training process, so that again, your departments learn, and your commissions and boards learn how to address these issues, open meeting law, public records law, conflict of interest. But I think we run the gamut. I think there's a lot in that proposal that you see, and pretty much any question that you've had on the municipal level, we've dealt with. Pat had that experience when he was with us, and he actually mentored me early on. So it's an interesting situation. But I think we cover all of the bases of municipal law. And then, as I said, outside municipal, I mean, we do environmental law, 21E, but again, on the municipal side, we focus on the municipal side. We don't sit on the other side of the V.
Thank you. What is your experience with issues involving police and fire? More specifically, dealing with license to carry appeals, suitability, alcohol issues?
We have an extensive practice with respect to police and fire. Everything, obviously now a lot of issues dealing with the post commissions. That's gotten very complicated with complaints that come in and how they have to be resolved and addressed specific with the police department. We represent police chiefs throughout the Commonwealth on license to carry and appeals. It's gotten more difficult. Obviously, the law has changed, and so that process has gotten more difficult, but we do that extensively. And we work very closely. It's not just, when you talk about police and fire, it's not just those issues. It's now our police and fire departments are being inundated with public records requests, I think kind of hand in hand with the post-commission issues. But we're finding that the public records law, especially since the law was changed and the implementation of the ability to obtain attorney's fees for failure to comply with the law, we find that the public records law has somewhat been weaponized, and it's really being used in a heavy-handed manner with respect to police and fire departments. They are just inundated. We work with our chiefs on records production, responses, providing responses, and working very closely with them. We really enjoy the relationships we have. We obviously appreciate their service and deal very closely with the rank and file as well as the chief and particularly with respect to the licensing issues. We work with some chiefs who like to do it themselves, and we give them the guidance so that they can handle those cases themselves. But we like to be in court with them. We like to be at the hearings and again provide the arguments so that we can defend the positions. We like to help the chiefs with their initial determinations, but obviously they have a great deal of discretion. And we work closely, as an example, recently with the town of Dedham on issues having to do with the location of a new entity that wanted to sell guns within the town, and how you address that through zoning issues, Second Amendment rights, and the kind of the diversion between the right to carry versus the right to purchase, which interestingly is a somewhat different concept. And so we work very carefully on that because the town was very concerned about having its first kind of open firearms distributor and sales store that was right on the main drag. So we get involved in a lot of police issues, and we work, again, very closely, aside from the labor and employment issues where we deal with the collective bargaining agreements. I know, again, that's not a topic for today, but that's an extensive process that we work with. In fact, our labor and employment folks become very close with the chiefs and town managers because they spend entire days in hearings and developing the collective bargaining agreements. But again, not for today's discussion. Thank you. You're welcome.
Doug? When dealing with complex zoning issues, what is your approach?
With complex zoning issues, I guess we deal on the town meeting end of things with a thorough review of any proposed zoning amendments. But then when you get past that to the actual implementation, we need to know the basic facts and issues. I know that the town recently voted down the MBTA communities proposed bylaw, and I'm sure that that's very significant in your thinking with respect to that question. We've had a number of municipalities that have voted down, some that had, interestingly, at one town meeting where I was attending, my recommendation to kind of address the issue as I saw the proposed zoning bylaw about to tank was to have someone make a motion to refer the zoning back to the planning board so that it could come up again. And the real reason we did that, I'm sure you think about this also, is so that the Attorney General, who was watching, literally watching, I think I told you about this, Bill, watching as of the moment. I was getting emails from the Attorney General's office as this matter was going to vote, almost like somebody was watching over our shoulder. And we wanted to just protect the ability of the town to bring it back for further consideration, knowing that there are a lot of issues. That particular issue, that's one we could spend the whole day talking about, and I don't think that's what you're looking for today. But in terms of handling complex zoning issues, we work very closely with the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Planning Board, special permit granting authorities, whoever it is who's involved. We work with planners to develop appropriate planning, to look at the zoning bylaws. We do zoning bylaw reviews with our clients. And when you talk about how to address it, I mean, I think it's a very broad question in terms of what the specific issue is. Obviously, we defend the decisions. We work with towns. If you are the permit granting authority, and you've granted a permit, we usually see a passive defense approach, where you let the entity that obtained the permit, they bear the cost and the effort of defending their permit, and we observe the litigation, but ultimately it's the choice of the Planning Board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and even the Select Board as to our level of involvement. When a permit is denied, we get involved, obviously, in defending the decision, hopefully a decision that we helped with, so that when you make that zoning decision, that the zoning decision is defensible based on a proper hearing and a proper process, and then the decision itself is a well-crafted decision. We work on a lot of Dover Amendment issues, so working with, and you've probably seen a number of those issues where you have exempt entities that are exempt from zoning other than reasonable dimensional requirements. And we work very carefully to make sure that we will push as far as we can up to that line, because the concept of reasonable dimensional requirements, there are different opinions on how far you can push that. We work on pilot agreements. I know that was something that was raised with entities that are Dover exempt, religious entities, educational exemptions, so that we can try to recoup some costs from for the municipality based upon their use, because they're still obviously, I won't say a burden, well, I guess we can say a burden on the tax dollars, because they're still getting the same services as everyone else. But I think the primary issue in dealing with a complex zoning process is to be, again, involved at the beginning, so that we're working first with a careful knowledge of your zoning bylaws, and then pushing it through to the application of those bylaws to the particular circumstance, being there for your hearing process, drafting the decision if necessary, working with your planners to make sure the facts are proper, the determination is consistent with Chapter 40A and your zoning bylaw, and then imposing appropriate conditions so that the application, the project can move forward in a manner that's beneficial to the municipality. But ultimately, if there's a challenge, we defend that challenge based on a proper decision.
Okay. Next up is the understanding of town issues and needs. What do you consider to be some of the biggest issues facing municipalities in general?
Well, I think we already touched on
Yeah.
the MBTA zoning. That
Yep.
seems to be wildly popular as a topic of discussion. I've been lecturing on issues of flag displays and the recent change in the case law with respect to public comment at open meetings. So we see the changes over time with respect to public records law and open meeting law, and how that affects on a day-to-day basis. I mean, every time you meet, you're dealing with the open meeting law, and every time you do a display or you do a public activity, I think we're all under the microscope much more than we had been. I did a talk for working with the Mass Municipal Association on the issues with respect to flag flying and the recent Shurtleff case. Going back a little bit, I was one of the leaders in the push to get municipalities involved in the opioid litigation, the national opioid litigation. It's touched on everyone. Every one of us has friends, family who have been touched with impacts from the opioid crisis. So I crisscrossed the Commonwealth, going to mayor's meetings, small town administrators meetings, specific meetings with a number of groups. That's a case that we took on at no cost. It's a contingent fee case, so the towns aren't actually paying for that through their legal budgets. And in fact, we have a fee fund administration, and so the funding for that is totally separate. We didn't go into that with the mind towards obtaining money from it. We felt that was a good government and a very good social issue. So we spent a lot of time getting municipalities involved, and I'm very proud of the outcome with that. I know the Attorney General joined in a little later than we did, and really followed through. I've met with the Attorney General. I've actually met with the Attorney General and the Director of the Bureau of the Department of Revenue, Director of Accounts, to develop the mechanisms by which municipalities could then expend the monies that came from the opioid settlements, and which then translated to a change in Chapter 44, Section 53, to allow special revenue funds to be used for opioid litigation. We're now involved similarly in the PFAS litigation. That's the next big issue that's hitting municipalities with water supplies. So that's, we obviously watch the trends, not because they're trendy, but because we want to see what's going to impact our clients. But some of these big issues, they're national issues, and we want to make sure that our clients can benefit from the protection of a national litigation, at the same time looking at what are the specific needs of the municipality. So those are some of the issues that have really been kind of hard-hitting lately. I really do think the use of the public records law and change in the push for change in the open meeting law is significant on a day-to-day basis for municipalities.
Okay, the next question we were going to ask was to talk about the MBTA Act, so I think we can pass that one.
We could spend the whole day on that
I
one, but I don't know that you really want to.
You know something, we've heard so much about it, talked about so much about it, and I'm sure you have too. It's good to pass over the question, to be honest with you.
And
So-
keep in mind, I tend to speak a lot because I want to try to get as much information out there. And Bill saw a little bit of that. Bill was my victim, but
Yeah.
you cut me off if you
Well,
want
no,
to move on.
in good, our bullet points, we knew that you would probably mention some of the things before, so that's
Sure.
perfect. So I
Yeah.
know we can skip that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bill's got a good question for you.
While Foxborough has a good commercial base, the largest is the Craft Organization and Mass General Brigham's organizations. Does your firm have any interactions with them, and could there be any perceived conflict of interest?
No, none at all. To be honest, I'm not even a football fan. I'm not a sports guy. Joe Fair, if Joe Fair was here, he could make all the sports analogies and comments. That's not me. But no, we don't have any relationship, and we certainly see. I think, Bill, you mentioned some of the issues that are upcoming. I know it's kind of further down the road, but yeah, that's a unique situation for Foxborough, of course. But no, we have no interaction with them.
Okay, and just a little follow-up to that. Now, if you were to become our legal counsel, where that conflict of interest, looking at the communities, the one that hits me is Walpole. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times when something is going on up there, we have meetings that we have a lot of Walpole residents here, and we try our best to listen to them too, because we like to be a good neighbor. So maybe that's a hard question to ask, because if you're not having, contact with the Patriots or the Craft Organization, what would you do if something did come up there and it was affecting Foxborough and affecting Walpole at the same time?
We have obviously a number of situations where we represent abutting municipalities, and we find a lot of times we're in a very good position to bring municipalities together. We do a lot of intermunicipal agreements. I do a lot of work with Jim Johnston. I know him very well. But it's similar in a number of our municipalities. When I'm working in Watertown and we're dealing with folks in Belmont that we represent, or when we're dealing with a regional school district and a bunch of our, the Lakeville Regional School, the Freetown-Lakeville Regional School District, we represent Freetown and Lakeville. We can advise on the Bear Law, and we can advise you on things that are specific to you. If there's a direct conflict, obviously, that's a situation we have to recommend special counsel. But it's a very, very rare situation, because usually in these circumstances, it's not an actual conflict. It's just making sure that we recognize the interests of both. We represent your interests specifically. We don't pick and choose. It's not a situation where you say, "Oh, you've been counsel for Walpole for so long. Obviously, you're gonna favor them." That's not an ethical breach that we'd want to delve into. That's a violation of our ethical obligations to you. So we would make sure that you were fully and properly represented. And I do think we're in a really good position to bring parties together and to bridge some of those issues and result in something that's successful for both. But we're here as if we were town council for Foxborough, and I'd love to be your council, we would be fully focused on you. And when I say we have no interaction with, that was with respect to a conflict of interest question, but certainly with respect to negotiations, that would be very exciting, obviously. I think any law firm would love to be involved in that kind of situation. And I think that in that case, Foxborough's unique interests, that's what we'd be representing.
Thank you.
Under client communications, how do you typically manage your relationship with clients? For example, lead attorney or team approach, and why?
I'm the lead attorney. I handle the clients. I'm the one. I take all the calls. My cell phone is on all the time. As I mentioned, the famous Thanksgiving case was just a funny one where we had to handle something right then. But my wife gets tired of Sunday nights. I'm rushing out to pick up the phone. I am always available. I have a team. It's important to have a team because occasionally I get sick, or occasionally I do take a vacation. But I'll tell you, I had a lovely conversation with one of my mayors while I was sitting in a cafe in Italy. I pick up the phone, and that's exactly right. Although it was pretty funny because as I was speaking to her, the espresso machine exploded. It literally exploded. And I'm jumping back, and she said, "What's going on?" I said, "I'm sitting here in this cafe," and she said, "Why did you pick up the phone?" I said, "Because you called." And it's great now, texting but to the point. That's what I like to do. I'm very relationship oriented. Your town council, that's a serious relationship. Obviously, you're going through this process. You've got 3 excellent firms, the 4th, another excellent firm. You've got some real heavy hitters that are contending for this. I think you're in an excellent position. Obviously, Foxborough. Everybody wants to be involved in Foxborough, but it's important to make sure that when you make that decision, and you're making that decision, obviously, that you're comfortable with that relationship, that it's someone that you feel comfortable speaking to on a regular basis, that is going to get back to you, that is not going to avoid you or not take the time to go through your issues, that you're worried about every time you call, you're on the clock. I encourage, I talk to my select boards all the time, and I would say this to you as well, I encourage select board members to call me up, and obviously it's got to be through the chair, and you've got to figure out how you want to do this, but I like to know what's happening in the community so that when you call me up, I don't want to be a stranger. I want to be not only part of your team, but part of your town. So it's important to have that level of relationship. And as an example, I think about the city of Amesbury. It's a small city, but it's a city. I've worked for every mayor that ever served. We go back to the first mayor and when they were a town. I've been in Watertown. I've been their council, their lead council now for over 20 years, and secondary council before that. And every one of their councilors, they'll call me up. And the council president will say, "You can't talk to everybody." So yeah, but I need to hear their issues. I need to know what's going on. And not everything winds up on the bill. It's not one of those situations. But ultimately the answer is, it comes to me. I have a team, but I expect I would be the one.
Thank you.
All right, the next topic we had was ethics and integrity. Looking down, I know the first question was just about conflict of interest, which I think we've already talked about, and I kind of feel, Bill, I don't want
You
to.
skipped one. You skipped one. You skipped Doc.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Doc, I'm so sorry, sorry.
I'm down at the end now. Easily forgettable.
I'm sorry, Doc.
No, with a name like
Collaboration.
Mark, you're not forgettable for me.
How would you work with other town departments and officials to address legal issues and provide legal advice?
So that's ultimately, I probably, Paige determines how she wants us to interact with the departments. I work with all the departments in the cities and towns that I'm involved with now. I like to get to know all of your department heads, come to staff meetings if that's what you want, figure out an appropriate mechanism. Obviously, there's the financial side of it as well as the legal services side of it, and you want to make sure that you're managing your legal dollars. You also want to manage your personnel so that someone isn't running off getting an opinion when it's possible, that the town already has an opinion or has a position on that, and B, that someone's not running off looking for a rogue opinion. But in terms of relationship with the department heads, it's really important. They're the ones, they're in the trenches, they're the day-to-day. And you rely on them, Paige relies upon them, and they want to know that when they have a problem, that their town council will back them up. So it's important, again, it's the relationship thing, to make sure that they know who the town council is, they feel comfortable calling you, they have my cell phone, again, through Paige and the chair to determine how you want to do that. But I have no problem giving out my cell phone and being that available, coming to meetings when needed, either department head meetings or setting up. Now, Zoom and Teams make it easier. I'm not a huge fan of remote meetings. I mean, I have no problem with them, and I do them regularly, but I like to be as personally involved as possible because nothing beats this. The Zoom is great. But for when you can't get people together, I've got a meeting I'm trying to set up, and I wanted to get everybody in one room, and counsel for the other side, they're based in Arizona. I'm probably not going to get him in the office. But I said, all your other people and myself, we're going to be in an office. We want to have people face to face. It's a totally different process. So in terms of the staff, certainly, I attended a staff meeting yesterday, a new town manager showing up. And he and I went out to lunch together. Then we did a lunch with all the staff so that all the staff would be there. I attend the staff meetings as necessary so that, I now have more experience than he does in the municipality, bringing him in. But it's a relationship thing. And they need to feel comfortable with their council. And they need to feel comfortable also with my team. Because there are going to be times when your planner is going to want to speak specifically to Jonathan Murray, the land use attorney, and they're going to want to feel comfortable with him. But obviously, at the end of the day, it comes back to me. So if they say to me, how do you want to see this work? I'm going to be the one that's going to give them the direction, and I'm going to be the one that's going to oversee it, and I'm going to be the one that's going to follow up with them to say, all right, did you get what you wanted, and is there more that you need? And feel free to reach out to me. So I'd be there just as I am for you, but again, I have to respect Paige's authority as the town manager and the chair's authority over your appointed boards and commissions. So it's really not, town council shouldn't be telling you how to use town council services. You tell us, we're the soldiers. You're the commanders, and so you tell me how you want to make use of me, and then I do it. I implement it.
Thank you.
I have a small follow-up to that. So obviously, looking at the list, and like you said, you're covering a third of the municipalities.
Not me personally.
Well, your firm.
Yeah.
So obviously, Foxborough is unique. We're a small town with a football stadium, right? So everyone.
Put that aside, yeah.
Exactly. So everyone thinks, on day-to-day, sometimes the tiniest little things come forward. And, I've only been chair for a short time, but I'm sure in the past, Doc has been chair before. Sometimes there's something that you think is so simple that we could answer an email or a question of somebody's. So is it normal for us to we would still reach out to you and then, even if it's just something so tiny that, because you just think it's council and spending money, but sometimes we don't want to misspeak or give misinformation, because sometimes it makes something small turn into something big. So what would be your approach on if it was just the tiniest thing?
And that's a great question, because I literally, as I was coming in, I got a call from one of my purchasing agents saying, I gave this advice, is it okay? She said, I need to talk to you before 1:30. I said, I've got a 1 o'clock meeting, give me a call right now. And we took care of it very quickly. There's so many of the questions are these tiny questions, and put aside this colossus of a everything's, the only reason you want to come to Foxborough is because of Gillette. No, you want to come to Foxborough because Foxborough, again, has a great economic base, a lot of projects going on, and it's a wonderful town. It just happens to have a stadium. But at the same time, you have all these issues. So, I deal with, have you ever heard of the town of Heath?
No.
So Heath, you go all the way out past Greenfield on Route 2, all the way out, and then you take a right turn, you go up the mountain, and you stop just short of Vermont, and there's Heath. And Heath has more sheep than people. It's beautiful, but in June, you still have snow on the mountain. And that was the first town that I took over when I came to Copeland and Page 26 years ago. And I still have them. I've seen them through so many different select boards, and it's a very small, very rural community where they ask, some of the questions they ask, like how do we appoint volunteers to one board or another board, things that you probably, you know how to appoint these things, but they don't. And they'll ask me, they'll say, this may seem like a silly question. And it's like, no, this is your question. No question is silly or minor if it's on your mind. And a lot of times it's like, how do we say this? How do we tell people this? And Heath is an example only because they have a tiny budget, but they rely on me very heavily. And they won't have a town meeting without me. And even they just had to continue a town meeting. And I said, do you really need me for your continuation? It's just on a regional school district item. No, we need you in case we have to continue it again. How do you adjourn a town meeting when you don't have a quorum? And, we went into this bizarre conversation like, well, the two things you could do with the lack of a quorum. You could dissolve or continue. But how do you do that without a quorum? That's one of the two things you could do. But we don't have a quorum. It's like, how many circles can you spin? But so you get those little questions, but that's your day-to-day stuff. And one of the things I bring, again, 36 years, gray hair and all, is the ability to answer those kind of questions quickly so that some of them don't show up on the bill. Because somebody's going to say, look, I just have a quick question. And I'm not going to be like, all right, I'm going to start racking up the bill. I'm going to take out the timer. You're going to reach me when I'm driving in the car to the grocery store, and you say, something just came up. How do we say this? I'm going to help you. I'm a pretty good writer. I'm going to help you figure out how you're going to make a quick statement or how you're going to deal with an issue. I've dealt with so many of them. I'm a municipal generalist. I deal with so many municipal issues that I could usually work you through something in a quick phone call. And obviously, if it's something complicated, I'm going to say, look, this is more than you thought it was. So let's get into this in more detail. We could do this now or later when you have the facts. And sometimes I've got someone who calls me and says, look, I'm on my way with my mother to the hospital, but this issue just came up with my board. What do I do? It's like, all right, calm down, take care of your mother, but here, and that literally happened, and then let's work through this. But you shouldn't be afraid of the stopwatch, and you shouldn't be afraid that, oh my gosh, we can't reach out. I'm not like that. I don't believe in that. I don't think that works well for you. And maybe that's from having been an in-house counsel for 10 years. I think that you should be able to call up and say, I've got this quick question, and the answer shouldn't be, well, I'm going to have to research that. I don't know the answer, but I'll check to see what statute applies. That's not going to help you when you're at a meeting and you say, let's recess the meeting and call counsel real quickly because I don't happen to be there at the meeting. Or you say, we need to get him here. Let's call him up and see if we can get him on the phone, on Zoom, or maybe he could even come in person. Those kind of calls, they're really, really important. So those tiny questions, they have huge impacts. Completely apart from pilot agreements and leases and construction projects, your day-to-day is built up by a bunch of small questions.
Perfect. All right, so, sorry as I jumped ahead of Doc, but my first question, I know it's been answered. I don't want to speak for Bill. I kind of thought yours was too, but was
Well,
something you wanted to...
I want to make sure on your first question, though.
Oh, okay.
You don't represent Walpole, do you?
At myself?
No, the firm.
Yes, yeah, we do.
Any other towns that are adjacent to us?
Well, we represent Medway. nearby. And I think those are the two that I work very closely with Michael Boynton in Medway, and he used to be in Walpole, and I work very closely with Jim Johnson. So I do work in both towns.
But Walpole would be the only touching town?
Yes,
To
yes.
us, okay. Can you provide an example, I think you've done this too, provide an example of two communities, that you were representing and had to navigate the situation involving potential conflicts of interest, and I think you...
I think I gave you a couple of examples. I can
Pretty
give you
much
more,
addressed
but,
that, yeah.
and we've done well with those issues.
Yeah, okay.
Before you ask a question, I've got to ask a question of you, because I keep hearing the reference to you as Doc, and that's got me curious.
I'm a chiropractor.
Excellent.
Been in town, practiced in town for the last 30
You can help me with my sciatica?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll talk after.
We'll talk.
Sorry.
And my license plate has Doc Elf on it.
Excellent. That's terrific.
And does your nameplate say Marco? Does it say Marco?
That does, I don't know why they,
Yeah.
That's because I heard the reference to Doc, and I was thinking, well, maybe we can get something going here. We could trade.
All right, one of the last questions. What is your opinion on retainer billing versus hourly billing? And when do you think one option is better than the other?
So we're open to both. I actually favor hourly in the sense that it allows you to control, as opposed to, I get nervous when the door is too wide open. And the reason being, when I talked about things like the rogue opinions and this open access, I think there should be control. And there are ways to do it, even with a retainer and what's within the retainer, what's outside the retainer. These formulas get very complicated, and it's gotten more complicated over the years. We're willing to work on whatever you think is best. I like to figure out, and this is again a meeting with the chair, with the board, with Paige, to figure out how you want to make use of council, to figure out, you've got a decent sized budget. You really do. To figure out what's the best way to protect that budget, to make sure that the proper people are getting access to council. So it's not so much like how much does it cost, it's obviously cost is an issue. I'm not going to, you know that, but more how you manage that interaction so that you don't look at the bill and say, "Wow, I didn't think that person had that level of access," and all of a sudden, obviously we bill in 1/10 increments, but that can, an hour, 2 hours, and I'm pretty quick at responding to things and giving that response in a my hourlies are pretty short because I can answer the questions pretty quickly, and so that's to your benefit, but you want to make sure that you're controlling it on your side, you're controlling that access. So we would have to figure out, is it a situation where we could put together, if it is a retainer, but even within that retainer, how that control is maintained, so you don't butt up against that retainer every month, and you're not, the last thing you really want to do at the end of the year is going back to the finance committee for a reserve fund transfer or doing an end of year transfer. None of us like to do that. But there are towns where I actually have to come before, it's more in the cities. I have a budget hearing in some of my cities where I actually have to come before the city council and present my budget. I don't make the budget. I always talk about how town council, city solicitor is a reactive department. So you set the department, you set the budget for DPW, police, fire. How do you set the budget for town council? You look at your experience and you figure out what is a reasonable budget, but you don't come to me and say, you tell me what number you want. It doesn't work that way. Because then, and not that, yeah, that's great. I'm going to give you a blank check. That'd be fantastic. But it's more, you need to figure out what suits your needs, and then we work within that. And we make sure and we tailor that. My wife laughs sometimes because she'll say, you give a lot away. There are plenty of, we do the trainings, we do a lot of free meetings and transition and things like that because we want to bring you up to speed. In terms of developing hourly versus flat fee versus retainer, there are a number of options. Again, the reason I like hourly isn't because it fills my pockets. That's not, I got enough, the firm has enough clients, as you know, that we're not looking to just pick up clients to make more money. We're looking for clients to help them. And we don't help you if you're overexpending your budget. The hourly rate allows you to track better what's going on. I mean, you can see it anyway. You're going to see, you're going to get the same entries, and you'll tell us what format you want your bill in. We have a number of different formats where you see the initials of the attorney, the number of hours, a full description of the matter, and then the total spent. Or some towns, they don't want the initials, and they just want the total, they don't want the hours. We have, I've got to say, probably 6 different versions of bills that you can choose from, again, to tailor it to you. So this gets back to, the question of how we interact with the town, how we interact with department heads. That's a meeting we have with you. So we have, I know, the proposal is, I think it's $2.45 an hour, then increased $10 every year. But that's just a basic proposal, and that allows you to really track and really know exactly how the money is spent. But if you're interested in retainer, and again, my personal preference, hourly, because you can squeeze that more, you can control that more, I think. A lot of times you have a retainer, everybody bills right up to that retainer. Then now I know I've got that much money every month. I'm going to make that money. I'm not going to leave that on the table. I'm not saying that's what I'm going to try to do, but that's like that. It just seems less incentive both on the town side, primarily on the town side. Let's use up all that money. I'd like to give you the most control possible because, believe me, I'm not in this to make money. It's not. If I wanted to make money, would I be in corporate law? I don't have any medical training. I don't get to do that kind of stuff, and I have no interest in corporate activities. I love doing this, and the reason is, again, the white hat thing. But so I'm not. I want to put together a budget and a mechanism that allows you to control those funds as best you can, and hopefully at the end of the year have money left that goes into your free cash as opposed to into my pocket. I hope that answered.
Yeah, Mark.
Very good. Yep. Okay, so Mark, that's the end of our questions, but obviously at the end here, is there anything you would like to ask the board?
Well, I guess one of the things is, how do you see the use of town council in terms of interaction with the board, interaction with the town manager? Do you see a situation where we would be primarily answerable through Paige, primarily answerable through the chair, responsive to each member of the board? How do you work it with Pat right now? How do you use him?
Well, and you something, very similar question that we got from the other firm. I'll just kind of say the same thing I said, and then I'll pass it to the rest of the board, anything they want to add. A couple of things I said, obviously we will have contracts coming up. And I also mentioned, of course, Paige is a new town manager.
Right.
And so, as she's learning the process, she'll have questions for you. So I think those are some of the things for me, knowing that our new council knows that is what's going to be important to us. I think, and of course, the board can have a conversation. Probably going through the town manager is always probably the best way to go. For me, then I guess it would come to me at this point because I'm the chair.
Right.
Now, with that being said, I think we've always, even with Deb and Bill joining, I think this has always been a board that's been very willing to, like if Doc said he really had a question, really wanted to speak with you, of course, I would feel like, okay, that doesn't seem like how we've gone, but I think we've always had good boards that work well together. So for me, I guess that's how I would see it. But let me pass it off to the other members if there's something different they'd like to add or see.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's always should be a protocol. Obviously, the town manager has to know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So, I like your approach, not on, boards going just directly to you on a regular basis, because I think that cuts the communication level out above. I think when it comes, obviously, you work for the Board of Selectmen as well as for the town manager. But I think so when we do have questions that are specific, sometimes it's easier for us individually to ask that question. But again, our chair should know that we're asking that question, just so that we, get it out to the right way. And quite honestly, obviously, we're looking for Katie to, review, bills when they come in and stuff. If they have no idea of what's being asked or questioned when a bill comes in, it's kind of like, who did that?
And that's something that I don't like to see. And it happens sometimes. This is when I talk about a rogue board or a rogue department head. It's rare, but occasionally it happens. And so we look to, obviously, the town manager is a day-to-day gatekeeper, but we're appointed by the select board. And different boards do different things. And I work with good boards, and I work with some fractured boards. And you look like a very uniform board. I have a number of boards where it's 2-2 and one swing, and it's constantly seesawing back and forth depending on the election and the mood. And some of it can get pretty ugly. And in those cases, it gets really difficult when you have access. And I have had boards where, by policy, every board member has access to counsel. And then you wind up with a situation where, Bill, you would ask me a question, and Doc, you would ask me the same question from a different perspective, and then Stephanie, you'd have to figure out how do we migrate through this? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I just got asked with a different set of facts, but it's clearly the same issue, and now I'm not number 6. You've got a 5-member board, and I'm not number 6. I don't sit at the same table with you. And so I cringe when I've been in situations where a board member says, town council told me, and another member says, wow, he told me something different. And then I have to come in and say 2 different sets of facts, and I can't just hang up the phone. So it's important for you to have that process. But at the same time, if you want to call me up and say, hey, just wanted to chat, that's something I love doing that. I love doing it. Or can you come down and let's grab lunch or grab a coffee and just talk about whatever is happening in town. It doesn't have to be a legal issue, and I'm happy to do that. But when it comes to legal issues, it's not just monitoring the spending, but monitoring the message and making sure that you're actually getting not just the answer you want, but the answer you need, the answer you deserve. Because sometimes you've got, if you, again, I always talk about garbage in, garbage out. Depending on the facts you give me, you're going to get a particular answer. And if you haven't said, all right, Debbie, this is your issue now, you contact town council and you ferret this issue out. And so I respond to you. But then, if Doc, after looking at my sciatica, says, and by the way, can we get into this issue? And suddenly we're veering into a question I already answered, but there are new facts coming in. I've got to figure out who's giving me the right facts. And it doesn't do you any good to have a town council whipsawing back and forth.
Obviously, even for people, watching at home, this is good to learn. And that's why best practice is to go through Paige.
Yes,
And then
best
a lot of
practice.
it comes through Katie because they're able to get the information to us that we can't be sharing with each other so we don't break the open.
Well,
meeting law.
and I'll always
So,
remind you of that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because we talk about the gatekeeper approach. There's a gatekeeper on our end, and there's a gatekeeper on your end. You as the chair, you're the gatekeeper for your board. Paige, and obviously with Katie, are the gatekeepers on a day-to-day basis. And that has to be respected. I'm the gatekeeper on my end. None of my folks are going to do work unless I tell them to do that work so that I can control that. Because if you or Paige call me up and say, look at this bill, I wasn't expecting this person to be working on this and this thing got out of hand, then I'm sitting thinking, all right, I got to cut 10 hours, 15 hours off the bill because it wasn't authorized, and I'll do that. If someone comes to me, and I do this all, I won't say do this all the time because it makes it sound like we're doing that all the time, but if somebody comes to me and says, this went too far, or it wasn't what we wanted, I discuss that, and I will take things off a bill if it went down a path, even if it was at the direction of a department head. If the town manager calls me up and says, what we weren't expecting that really wasn't what we were authorizing, I'm never going to say to you, well, you got to pay for it. You only wanted a brake job, and now you got a brakes and an alignment. You got to pay for both. I'm not going to do that.
Mark, thank you so much for your time. Just so you know, we'll be meeting next Tuesday night. We'll see
I'll be
one
watching.
more day. Yeah, that's what we figured. Next Tuesday night, deliberate and pick a new town council. And thank you so much for your interest in Foxborough.
Well, again,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you for having me. And just in closing, again, it's a real privilege to be here. And I'm here alone, as you can see, because I'm the person, you know, and I want you to know that. I want you to know, because I heard the comments at your meetings, and I know everybody has their particular perceptions, but I just want to make sure you knew that the reason I'm here by myself is because I believe in this process, I believe in the town council position, and I'd love to bring my 35 years of experience to the town of Foxborough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Give me a call, I've got lots to talk to you. Bye-bye, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Not working and '14, and I found it.
Oh,
And I sent you the link.
is what I think.
They don't read the whole thing. They have a massive discussion. It was when Bob Cutler was interim, and he told them like
Wait a second.
to, yeah. I don't know if you're.
Thank you.
You too, though.
Yeah, I'm primary.
You're the lead.
Yeah, MTC.
Hi there, how are you?
Good, how are
Okay, so continuing along, you're number three of our three for the day.
That's right.
So, okay, so this is MTC. So first, what we do with everybody, just to give you a little heads up on who we are. So my name's Stephanie McGowan. I'm newly chair. This is my 5th year on the board. I've lived in Foxborough for 27 years. I didn't grow up here, but I married a townie, so we've been here.
That counts.
Yeah, raised our kids, school with the Foxborough schools, and it's a pleasure to have you here today. Debbie, you want to introduce yourself?
I am Debbie Giardino, recently elected to the board. I've lived in town my whole life, raised my kids, my grandkids, so I am very invested in how the community succeeds, and I'm happy to have you here, and I hope things go well.
Thank you.
And Bill, I'm the vice chair, newly elected as well. Spent 32 years in the private sector, the last 12 and a half actually on the public side doing the school business manager's role. And been involved with the building committee for 23 years in town, so pretty much every project that's been done I've been involved with, and again, looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Good afternoon, Mark Elfman. I'm in my 9th year of my 3rd term here on the board. Lived in town, worked in town for the last 35 years, volunteered for most of those 35 years. Like Steph, not a townie, but a married one, so semi-close, and raised my kids here, both graduated Foxborough High School, so community is very important to us.
And we have a 5th member who's listening in, but not here today. Dennis couldn't make it, so.
So he's listening. I keep forgetting about Dennis. I'm sorry, Dennis. Out of sight, out of mind. I guess I'm like this. I'm too tuned in here. Okay, so basically what we did, we have the same questions we asked everybody. We broke them down into topics, and then if we have some questions underneath, we feel like you've already hit a good answer to a follow-up question, we'll just bypass it. So first topic is legal expertise. This gives us a chance for you to tell us about yourself. Please give us some background on your firm and why you believe you would be a good legal partner for the town of Foxborough.
Great. So I'll field this, and Lisa can jump in. So first of all, Jay Tallerman, partner, Mead Tallerman Costa, Lisa Mead, partner with us as well. We've been there since the very beginning. So Mead Tallerman Costa is a municipal law firm. We represent about 30 towns right now and do some special counsel with other towns. We were born more or less around 2004. Largely we started out, Lisa came from representing the city of Somerville. Before that, she was the mayor in Newburyport. I came from KP Law, then Kopelman and Page, and so we joined up with another partner at the time, did a lot of land use work, a couple years later, got our first town as town council, and we've been kind of in a steady kind of growth since then. We've expanded the firm quite a bit. We have 3 offices now, represent a whole bunch of towns. When we decided to do this, we thought there would maybe be a different way, maybe a better way of delivering municipal legal services. And there's no right way. We just felt that with Lisa's experience as mayor and some of the experiences I had at KP Law and then as a municipal official in my own town, I'm a resident of Norfolk. I grew up in Medfield. I've been in Norfolk since 1995. I'm the town moderator. So we're like entrenched in municipal government, the two of us. We felt there was an opportunity to treat this more like a partnership with the communities that we represented. Now, there are communities that perfectly enjoy having an attorney that should sit and wait for a phone call, and we're always happy to sit and wait for a phone call if that's what it is, but we think the strength of our services or the strength of municipal council services could be a model whereby, we're not policymakers, but we could be right there with you every step of the way. And how do we manage that? How do we do that? First of all, it's the people that we bring on board at our firm. And second, it's just we figure out ways to make it economically work for you all so it doesn't cost you $1 million to have town council around a lot. And that is reflected in our cover letter and our fee proposal. But we want to help you resolve issues before they become problems. We want to be there. We want to know what bylaws you're working on for town meeting, what your budget looks like, what are your big contracts and big projects out there, what are the problems you might have with your budget in the upcoming year, so we can help you resolve those issues going in. And that's kind of the model that we've had since the very beginning. of our practice. It seems to work pretty well. We do things like office hours, once every other week, once a month, whenever you like them. We don't often charge by the hour unless you would prefer us to charge by the hour, so we can have more unlimited access. We give seminars, we attend, under most of our proposals, we attend meetings under our flat fee proposals, planning board, zoning board, conservation commission, select board, whatever it may be. We try and be present for you whenever you need to without breaking the bank, and that's kind of been what we've done since the very beginning. The towns that have joined with us seem to like it, so that's more or less our firm. I don't know if Lisa has anything to add.
I think, and Lisa Mead, a partner with Jay, obviously, I work out of the Newburyport office. I'm from Newburyport. But I'm often in Foxborough. In fact, I taught, Jay and I both teach for the MMA program, the municipal, and we had it here one year, 2019, I think, it was right before COVID shut down, so I was driving down here every Friday to do it. And I think Jay's right. What I tried to do when we formed this firm is put the word counsel back into town council as opposed to your lawyer, right? Because being a good attorney is providing advice. What are the risks and what are the benefits? And as the decision maker, you kind of want to know that in advance. You don't want to say afterwards, well, I wish I would have known that going into it. And whatever the decisions are that you make, we're going to go defend you, but we're going to make sure that you have all the information up front to make the best decisions that are good for you. And then we as a team are going to make that happen however it is. And I think an example I can use for kind of the being a part of the policy making is we've represented the town of Ashland since 2007. It was our first community. And so I've been lead counsel there since 2007. And I do office hours out there. And the town needed to build a public safety building. We started 6 years ago, I think. And we negotiated an agreement with a very large property owner, and he agreed to give the town the land, then he wouldn't actually give the town the land. And so the town manager had a long-term strategy. We really talked about it back and forth over this period of time. So we ended up taking the land and not paying anything based upon the gift agreement that we had negotiated and drafted. And interestingly enough, the public safety building is built, and we are resolving any matters regarding an adjacent piece of property that the town manager also wanted tomorrow. We are completing a purchase and sale of that. But there was a long-term vision that we worked through, the pros and cons of it, how we would negotiate it, what we needed to get at town meeting, what we needed to do to work with the landowner in order to achieve the goal of the town. And had we been somebody that kind of just parachuted in and parachuted out, he wouldn't have the benefit of our counsel, and I wouldn't have been able to give him the good advice because I wouldn't have really known what his long-term vision was, right? So the sharing of that, pushing things back and forth, I think are really important, the kind of services we provide, and our various fee agreements allow that to occur. So that's who we are.
Please describe your approach to managing municipal law issues for your municipal clients.
So, and some of it depends on how the town wants to do it, and some of it depends upon the arrangements. Again, if you accepted our application and appointed us and wanted some office hours, we'd be delivering some services there. We have a primary backup. In this case, we suggest 2 subsidiary backups, but then we also have folks with specialties too. So everything would come through me as the primary. I've got 2 immediate backups on primary, kind of if I'm not around and can't be reached. But then we're a very partner-driven firm. Even though we have associates, we'd like you to be able to reach a partner in charge of a particular project. So for example, Lisa handles all of our high-stakes contracting. So if you had an issue, say, and Bill, we talked about this a little bit when I met with you in Page, if you had an issue out on Route 1 that was very contract devoted, then Lisa would be in charge of that. You know, we would all be informed, but you would be getting the delivery of services through someone who's right there on the front line. There wouldn't be multiple filters. It wouldn't be a parade of associates. It would be Lisa working with you as the chief negotiator or chief draftsperson or what have you. Then we have backup for that. We've got our real estate people
who can put together all the real estate elements of something. We've got litigators that can put a team of litigation together, or at least evaluate potential claims. So we make sure that things are centralized enough to make the select board and Paige, or whoever your town manager is, comfortable with how you get to the services, but then we make sure that every single set of services is going to be working through one of us partners. There's 5 of us right now, and then we kind of deliver from there. We help size up projects. What they are, as Lisa just said, we help issue spots so you can be on the right track. We are, fortunately for us and perhaps for you, I have an office right here in Millis, so we're close by. We've got a smaller team here in Millis, but we can put people on it quickly, attend those meetings as need be. We have a little bit of local knowledge because of, I live nearby, one town over. Kate Federoff, who's another primary contact, lives in Easton, so we're pretty familiar with the area. So that we kind of, that hands-on approach that we talked about at the top here a little bit. And then the rest of it, Bill, is really the financial model, the delivery of services. If you opted for one of our 2 flat fee proposals, to me, it's just super user-friendly. You're about the right size to think about that, whether it was litigation in or litigation excluded in that. It's just a comfort level, and it allows you to kind of get the services you want. And we think that's been really helpful for a town your size in the delivery of services.
I want to add one section to that, because not everything is a big project, right? There's a lot of stuff that happens on a day-to-day basis in the town that needs to get done in order for services to be delivered to constituents, to get projects done. So one of the things, for example, that we've done is around how we efficiently provide services, and that is our contract review, right? So I've developed a set of contracts that I give to every single one of my municipalities. We tailor it for the municipality. You know, we'll look at your bylaws, we'll look at your rules and regulations, and make sure that the contracts include terms that are important to the town of Foxborough. But we know that the provision in the contract will protect the town. And so the idea is that those contracts gets attached to any of the RFPs that go out to bid, and everybody is using the same contracts, so that you're not spending your time and our time and your money, that I can renegotiate an engineering contract every single time you need engineering services, right? Which is ridiculous. We have a form of a contract that we know is acceptable, even though they don't like it, acceptable to every engineering firm in and all the big engineering firms in Massachusetts. And so we would give you those, and when I just transitioned a city to one of those, right? It took a little bit because they had some quirks. But now, and their contract review used to take 3 weeks to go through their process. If that contract comes in, the procurement officer knows that that contract's been approved, it's that form of contract, it has the right attachments, I get it, I see it, that none of it's been changed, and the review is done in 48 hours, right? So we do those kinds of things we've developed over what we've learned, and I think that provides a more day-to-day efficiency, not necessarily on a big project, but really important to your department heads.
Bill, through the chair, if it's okay,
Absolutely.
Steph. Could you explain this concept of office hours?
So we do office hours in a number of our communities. Not every community does it, and you can do it any number of ways. We have found over years, and I think it probably started when Lisa was trying to repeat or kind of replicate what she enjoyed as a mayor, where you would have in-house counsel or counsel more present. And that is, say, every other week, we would commit to a number of hours, 3-4 hours, whatever it is, if that's the schedule you want, and we would be here. And you could design it however you want it. Some towns do a drop-in, town department heads can drop in, or some towns do it by appointment, where you set up a sign-up sheet and we just show up and we just answer legal questions. It's all baked into the fee already, and it's a way of getting. Sometimes we do site visits in those office hours. Some towns will do the office hours only when they need them. For example, we're council in Winchester. We have as many as twice a month office hours, and they will just say, well, we'll schedule them when we need them. So every town has a different way of doing it. The towns that do use it, and again, we offer it in 2 of our 3 proposals, it seems to work really well. A building commissioner will come and see us. A finance director will come and see us. A town planner will come and see us.
conservation agent, obviously a town manager, sometimes a select board member or community preservation. So just drop in, issue spot, talk something through. They're here, it's easier face-to-face sometimes. Sometimes we do them virtually. But it's just something that we've been doing since Ashland.
Since 2007. It's preventative medicine, right? It also goes to the point about providing counsel services, because it's team building, because you get to know, right? You get to know who those department heads are. You get to know who the chairs of your boards are. You get to know the town manager and what they want or don't want. You get to know the select board members. And that way, they know, oh, town council's coming in, I'm going to save that for them. It also prevents a lot of extra phone calls that might not be efficient either. So it goes to that whole council idea and making us part of the team, so people feel comfortable asking us things ahead of time before it causes trouble.
Thank you.
In addition to municipal law, what areas does your firm excel in? Labor, issues potentially, MCAD, that type of stuff?
So we have, and you met the head of our labor group, our partner Kate Federoff. Over the years, we didn't start out doing much labor law, and about probably 10 years ago now, maybe a little bit longer, we started a labor and employment group. So we have a whole group of now 4 or 5 attorneys that can work in it, anything from adversarial stuff to contract negotiation. They have a strong, dedicated practice along those lines that as needed or on a regular basis, we deliver those services. We have, in terms of other things other than general municipal, we think we have the strongest land use practice in the Commonwealth for municipalities. The other folks that you're interviewing have good practices. We know them, they're friends of ours. We think our land use practice is second to none. All of us had a grounding, or all the partners, myself, Lisa, and Adam, had a grounding in land use law before we started this firm, whether it's 40B stuff, affordable housing, zoning, planning, wetlands, health enforcement, all those kinds of land use things. We think we are the strongest on the municipal side. Anyone we'd stack up to them, and we have other specialties too that we do. Our litigation bench is really strong, but our labor group's very strong and growing. And as we develop more and more client relationships with that, but our land use in particular, Lisa's contract practice, sophisticated contracts, is really strong. There are now 2 lawyers working full-time under her for working on sophisticated contracts and routine contracts on a day-to-day basis.
And real estate, so we have a real estate group too. So we have a real estate group that does private transactions, but all of our municipalities have real estate transactions, and they lead with us on the real estate groups too. So general municipal, real estate, labor and employment, land use.
And that real estate group does everything from just buying a piece of land that you need, selling a piece of land, doing a license or an easement, to running our takings practice as well.
Right.
So.
Thank you. What is your experience with issues involving police and fire, and more specifically dealing with license to carry appeals, suitability, alcohol?
So a couple of different areas there. Let me focus on a couple. So at any given point in time, we've got 4 or 5 LTC cases going on. We've represented a lot of chiefs. I've got one right now pending up at the appeals court that's going to be interesting, kind of both on a mass law and maybe a Second Amendment basis, trying to support our chief in that. But we've got all of our litigation team has done LTC stuff. As to alcohol licensing, I'd say probably most of the firm has worked on alcohol licensing, whether it's enforcement under that, stings that we do for our communities, to general licensing questions in terms of granting, renewing, under all the issues under Chapter 138. You can think of one-day licenses, all of that stuff that we are dealing with all the time. So, yeah.
Thank you.
When dealing with complex zoning issues, what is your approach?
Complex zoning issues. So, it depends on the issue, right? So certainly, and I'm going to let Jay pipe in here too. You want to, if it's the town doing some zoning, You want to understand what the goal is of the community, and you want to understand very clearly what the existing zoning is. And then if it's a change, you understand what the impact of that change is and what nonconformities are going to be created as a result of any major zoning change. And then the next level up, of course, is the impact on the economics and how that, like what your changes do. How's it going to do with your housing stock or your commercial tax base? You want to understand that, and then you start to do the drafting to understand how it will really impact the zoning bylaw itself and what the result will be, because you want to understand what the result is before you actually do the bylaw, right? So we kind of work with the planner, town manager, select board, planning board very carefully along that way before you come up with the ultimate change in your zoning bylaw. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, and I'll offer two other things. You know, in other things in and around zoning bylaws is interpretation and enforcement, as well as just general hearings. So again, we will attend or help your boards with their hearings on things. We also advise building commissioners on a daily basis. In fact, today I did a seminar for the Metro West building officials. I give the annual seminar for Southeastern Mass, Metro West, Northeast, and Western Mass building officials. So we are working with them constantly to get them smarter on zoning, something that's always a benefit. And another thing that we've been working on a lot as of late is the MBTA zoning. And that is, you know, even though the state has kind of a monolithic model that they'd like you to kind of approach things with, what we've learned is that every town has a different approach to that. And some of it's positive and some of it's not so positive. And some of it is grandiose and some of it is we just want to survive here or we want to fight here. And so what we have found working on that in a number of our communities just this spring and now coming into the fall is that we work to tailor our advice on what you want to achieve in that. Even if achieving means you want to kind of have a little pushback on it, which happens. We're cognizant of the fact that Foxborough did not pass theirs. We have a number of towns that did and a number of towns that didn't. And we're working with them to either help support their efforts or to work with them to find a way out of this in a way that still protects them to the best of their ability. But no two towns have had the same approach to this. And likewise, we are trying to figure out the path forward, whatever that town wants is going to be. And we know it's not easy. So, but we have been working tooth and nail. We have a direct line to the Attorney General's office on all zoning matters. They trust us. They reach out to us on zoning matters. So it's been a wild ride, and you know we keep plugging away at it.
Okay, next topic, understanding of town issues and needs. What do you consider to be some of the biggest issues facing municipalities in general?
Well, I would say development, lack of housing, and financial needs. I mean, and those all go together, right? So the question is, how do you best balance those for yourself? And where is that budget going to be next year? And, you know, it depends on the community, right? And some communities are hitting the housing, some communities we're fine with housing. We don't need to worry about it, but we want to grow our commercial tax base. You're obviously in a unique situation here. You don't necessarily have that same issue, but you know, that growth, that push and pull, you know, the decline in enrollment in your schools, but you still have school expenses. How do you deal with that versus whatever else is going on in town? How do you keep up with the schools? Need to get everybody else on board to support the schools if you have school projects to do. I think those are some of the biggest, the capital needs and the financial needs that financial requirements to support those financial needs.
Yeah, having just rolled out of a busy Springtown meeting season, this is, I mean, there are financial issues every year. I really see this past year more than any other year, the town's really stressing against diminishing state aid and having how there's increased demands on us from the state, but less money, and how to manage that within your tax base, within your levy limit, and still keep great employees around, still make sure you're funding education, public works, has been an incredible challenge. I haven't seen this number of towns go for operating overrides in 20 years.
Right.
And which isn't to say that they're all passing. Some of them are not passing. But I think a number of towns are hitting their one-time funds, they're hitting free cash and stabilization funds for operating. The stress for select boards, for town managers, for finance committees, for school committees is palpable right now. And how to work our way out of it, I've looked at the state budget. It's not awesome. You know, they tried to prop up, Chapter 70 money a little bit. Not enough. Never enough, but, it's putting a patch on it. And so we feel and try and work with you the best we can to help you give good ideas on how to manage that. No great solutions to it, but we know that there's a ton of stress financially.
And the cost of construction, I mean, that's the other thing, right? So the cost of construction, when you have capital needs that have been delayed or you've had other priorities, the cost of construction right now is just, it's mind-boggling, and how a community takes care of that within their levy limit is next to impossible. And you certainly can't do more than one project at a time, even though you may have dozens of needs. And again, we don't have all the solutions. We'd be lying to you if we did, but any way we can help to, talk about how you work through those, we're available to do that.
I'm going to follow up with what Doc had asked on
Yep,
one.
go right ahead.
As far as the migrant housing issue, do you have other communities that you're dealing with that have that issue? Obviously, Foxborough does. And how are you seeing that play out?
So I've seen it I've seen it in a number of the communities, but we had the issue in Yarmouth with some hotels. And we were okay with one location. It seemed appropriate. We had two significant concerns. One, the impact to our infrastructure in Yarmouth, and the second was the safety of the folks that were there, and we felt that one of the hotels was substandard and would cause problems through public safety, through public health. So we were working kind of to help facilitate some, but also to push back against another. And it was a pretty difficult challenge. The state obviously has an upper hand on this. So trying to work within that, we're able to find a little bit of pushback on one and managed to kind of negotiate it out, and they eventually moved those folks elsewhere while still working with the other hotel to manage it. Right here, as as I know, as the town moderator in Norfolk, the Bay State is up to 450 people there. My town is under a lot of stress. This broke 2 days before my town meeting, and everyone said that we're going to discuss this at town meeting. I said, well, no, we're not going to discuss it at town meeting. But the entire town is in like a little bit of an existential crisis. We have a lot of folks who are supportive of helping these families out, but everyone needs questions answered. And, even if all the intentions are great to help get these people off of floors in Logan Airport, the logistical hurdles for municipality, 400, you feel the same thing, 450 new folks, maybe call it 50, 60 kids, maybe, in the Norfolk school system, small school system. How do you support that? Where is the money coming from? What about our public safety? Do we have to be the ones responsive? Are the conditions okay over at Bay State, which was closed a while ago and in disrepair? So it touches every single department in town, and it's incredibly unfunded or underfunded at the very least.
So we represent the town of Hadley, and Hadley has a hotel there on Route 9, and they got a group of migrants right before school started last fall. Maybe it was in the mid, and it was a huge impact on them because their elementary school and middle school is local, and then they have regional schools, and they just don't have the infrastructure to handle it at all. And so we helped them discuss with DESE and with the governor's office any additional aid, the state rep, state senator. They were able to get them some additional aid in the schools to help support them in the schools, because that's I'm not telling you anything, this is a huge impact, right? You've got,
Speaking to the choir.
right, so you've got kids who don't speak English, and they have to be taught English, but they have to be communicated with on a regular basis. So you're now bringing in all these second language folks in to support these kids who also have physical and emotional stressors in the school. So again, there's no right answer. We'd be lying to you if we said you was, but we can help facilitate, those contacts and negotiations between contracts, state contracts, in order to handle those kind of problems.
Thank you.
Okay, we talked a little bit about the MBTA Communities Act, but how do you possibly see that impacting Foxborough?
So I think it depends on I'm assuming, but maybe assuming wrongly, that it's going to come back up in the fall, maybe? I don't know, or?
Well, there's a problem in the fact that the planning board technically can't bring it up for 2 years.
That's not true.
Okay, well, that'd be good then.
They need a positive recommendation.
Their own positive.
Their own positive recommendation, they can put it back in front of the town meeting.
Okay. So that's where we stand at this point, though, is that they didn't give us a positive to start with. It went to town meeting, obviously failed in town meeting miserably. I think 43-4 and 300 against. So, now we're kind of back to square one.
Sure. So there's a few things. Now, if you are working on something that has a chance, then I think, and we've worked with a number of communities, and we have kind of a hotline with the AG on how we structure these. And we have worked with a lot of our planning departments to make sure that where we're putting the districts could be, if your goal is to create more housing, we can figure out ways to choose the districts and the kind of controls to facilitate that. If your goal is to place these districts in areas that generally are already built on, and there's just a potential of housing, even though it's unlikely that it'll ever get built, we have done that model too.
Those are all approvable.
Those are all approvable. So we've had some towns, granted a minority of them, say, no, we want to get a few projects in. And so we have figured that out. And we've worked with other towns, like, please just do an overlay over something that's been developed in the last 10 years. So there's going to be minimal impact, at least within the next few years. And we've dealt with that too. Now, on the flip side of that, if it seems like it's a fait accompli and it's not going to happen here, and then we're dealing with the ramifications on it, there's a few issues that there can be absolute pushback on some of the things. We think that the AG is wrong, that they can compel you to pass anything. They could impose penalties, and they could make it difficult for you to get grants, if not impossible to get grants. But there is a certain amount of pushback and advocacy that we can provide along those lines as well. So again, we have other towns in a similar position as yours. More have passed than not passed, but we have some that are never, ever, ever going to pass. And we're helping them manage how that will be, including advocacy for what may come next with the next piece of legislation.
And I have a pretty big community that they actually did a hybrid of what Jay said. They located a lot of it on an area that was recently developed, and there's no way it's ever going to be developed, but it was an acceptable zone. And they located a very small part of it in an area that they're going to allow, triplexes, townhouse triplexes, in a reasonable amount, because it probably would have been developed anyway. So, I think that area allows for 40 or 50 houses max. So, and they ended up passing it at town meeting because that was kind of the balance, and that's how it was explained. So there is a way to do it if you want to limit the impact. If you want to take it back to town meeting, you could change it enough that it would be a significant change that then the town meeting could see it, even if the planning board said no. But if you want to take the same thing back, then the planning board would have to say yes the second time.
While Foxborough has a good commercial base, the largest one obviously is the Kraft and Patriots Group, along with Brigham and Mass General organizations. Has your firm had any interaction with them, and do you perceive any conflicts of interest?
We've not, and we don't have any conflicts with the Kraft Group or Mass General.
About 15 to maybe even 20 years ago, I had a small thing over at Rodman that I did, but that's not the only thing I've ever done on Route 1 in Foxborough, ever. I've done a little stuff in Walpole on Route 1 over the years, but I've never, no conflicts.
Great, thank you.
Under client communication, How do you typically manage your relationship with your clients? For example, lead attorney or team approach, and why?
So as Jay was saying, that we would certainly have a lead attorney, it would be Jay, and then we have the two immediate backups, so that there's always contact. And depending on the issue, we certainly would put a team on it, and you would always know who the lead is on any particular issue. You know, there are some people that that somebody would get to know. So we have a couple of folks who, public records, open meeting law, they answer those all the time. And so department heads, town clerk, they might just be talking to those people, wouldn't be talking to Jay necessarily unless it's a really sticky issue. But otherwise, you're talking to Jay or whoever the lead attorney is on it.
And then the rest of it is on your end.
Yeah.
However you design the protocol, whether it's always through the town manager and everyone has to get approval, or if things kind of get going, certain department heads have the rights because they haven't abused the privilege, that's all on your end. And we deal with all different ways of doing it. However you like to do it in terms of who's got authority to access us, then that's fine. If someone doesn't have authority or it hasn't gone through the right protocol, then we would direct it probably to the town manager, who would then say, yay, yes, go ahead, or no, don't go ahead. So we're respectful of your protocol as well. We have stuff, our kind of hierarchy on our side for these things, and the rest of it is how you like it. There's no one right way to do that.
This might be one where I think you've talked about in a number of different little subcategories, but how would you work with other town departments and officials to address legal issues and provide legal guidance? I think you just
Yeah.
sort of talked about
Right.
that in the town meeting, the office meeting.
Right, office hours.
Office hours,
Right.
yeah.
And again, sometimes we get, if it's an ongoing matter, certainly, whether it's litigation or a large special permit project or a large contract or something like that, and we are initially authorized, then we will continue to on that. And over time, through the office hours, we develop rapport. So likely that the town manager or the select board will have a little bit more free back and forth with that, but we design everything so that your department heads are comfortable with us. How they get access to us is a different story, but we want to make sure that every department head and every board chair isn't afraid to pick up the phone, either because it's going to cost too much or because they're somehow intimidated by legal services. We aim to demystify all of the stuff around legal services and bring it down and bring up the level so that there's good, honest communication.
Thank you.
Good, so under ethics and integrity, you somewhat answered this, but I don't know if we were, Bill talked about the Patriots and Craft Organization, but the question was, do you work with adjacent communities? And if so, how would you deal with any perceived
So
conflicts?
we represent, and we mentioned this to Bill and Paige when we had the initial meet and greet, we do represent Rentham.
Right.
Okay.
So, and we represent Easton, which isn't, does it touch at one point? But it's one town away, so not really. There could be some intermunicipal agreements there potentially, so.
We had a regional sewer agreement.
We are, but I don't think Easton's in that one.
No, but there's somebody that
We did with Mansfield, I know that. So there is especially sharing Route 1.
Right.
I could foresee some things happening with Rentham. What we would do if a situation, there may be a conflict, and we'd have to figure that out and figure out a way to get you all counsel that can help with you. If it's not a conflict per se, but both towns have an interest in it, we talk. Yeah, and sometimes those things, everyone can sign off, hey, you're really just working on something as a matter of form that suits both our interests. Obviously, if you're fighting with each other on something, which is possible, then we wouldn't represent either. And we'd have to, both towns would have to work together to figure it out.
I had two small towns that were going to do a shared regional dog officer, animal control officer. And so I disclosed, they of course knew that I represented both of them. And I said to them, look, you guys, if you work out the business arrangement, I can be the draftsperson. If I'm not negotiating it on behalf of one community, that's fine. And they worked out the business arrangement, then I was the draftsperson. So it just depends on the situation. But if there was a conflict, we would have to give separate counsel.
So I think you just actually just answered this question, so I'll just put it in the record so we have it. Can you provide an example of a time when you represented two communities and had to navigate the situation involving potential conflict of interest? And I think that's the perfect answer for it. Thank you.
Again, we talked about this a little bit, but what is your opinion on retainer billing versus hourly billing? And when do you think one option is better than the other?
So some towns like the hourly, and we try and give options so you're comfortable. We represent some towns where we've said, we think you're a good fit maybe for a flat fee. And they say, you know what, we think we can control our legal services and may get more economy out of doing it by the hour. It suits them. It could end up suiting you. We do think that one of the two flat fee arrangements kind of works well. I mean, I would speak to someone like Connor Reed, who is the town administrator over in Easton, or Kevin Sweet, who has
Who's
an
hourly,
hourly
right,
arrangement
Kevin's
over
hourly,
in
right.
Rentham. It can be different. So it's not so much a retainer as you just pay us the same amount. And some months we eat the bear, and some months the bear eats us. But at the end of the day, it works out for us. We kind of look at your past services, your legal budget, we figure it out. I love the notion of the fact that come March, when your legal budget is drying up, you've got a month and a half, 2 months left, that you don't have to worry about picking up the phone to an attorney because you're running out of money. I think that's a fabulous way of delivering services, that you never have to worry about it. And those late fiscal year issues can really come up in and around town meeting. The other aspect of our flat fee arrangements that's really great is sometimes you want to fight over something. And litigation is the single biggest driver of litigation, of legal costs. And sometimes if you are paying by the hour, you don't want to say, oh my gosh, that's going to be $40,000, $50,000. That's just a crusher. We can't go back to town meeting and ask for more money. Sometimes you say, and towns have never, we've been doing this for 20 years, towns have never abused the privilege. Some, knock on wood. Don't be the first. Sometimes you say, I want to fight this one. Our constituents expect it. We got about a 50-50 shot, but it's the good fight. And I know we're fighting, something that may be a 40B, for example. It's worth the fight. And if you were paying the same amount every month and litigation is included, then you don't have to worry about the other side of it. And that can be really valuable, because there are some things that are those 50-50 propositions. We're never going to suggest that someone litigate frivolously or fight frivolously, but sometimes it's in the margin, and it's important to you, and it's important to the people that trust you to fight for them. So we love it, and it's been successful for us. It's been successful for towns. It doesn't fit every town.
And I will tell you, the town managers I have that have it, like to know that that's what their legal budget is every month. There's no bills coming in that they didn't expect. When June comes around, it's the same amount. It's July, August, right? It's the same amount. And they don't have to worry about going back to the finance committee and asking for a transfer into the legal budget. And they can still pick up the phone. You got a crazy zoning board hearing happening. The chair can still pick up the phone and say, Lisa, this is going to happen. Can you review this decision? Am I going in the right direction? Is this the advice we should give the board? They're not told, no, you can't call council. And then guess what happens? In July, we have a piece of litigation, right? Because they were afraid to call us ahead of time. So it works out. It's worked out. It's beneficial. Again, it goes back to where we started in the beginning. It puts council back in to town council. And it helps everybody work in the same direction on the same team.
Ironically, just from a raw business perspective, it's really good for us in a way too, because if litigation is the biggest driver of services and we're under a flat fee with you, it's worth it for us to not litigate. Now, we'll litigate as much as you need, but if we're on the front end, because you don't have to worry about picking up the call, we're avoiding, every town that we have a flat fee arrangement in, litigation has gone down.
Dramatically.
Because we're problem solving ahead of time. Some fights are inevitable, and it happens, but litigation goes down. Litigation is no fun for anyone. Even though we make money off of litigation, we don't want to see you in the papers on a piece of litigation. So,
Great, thank you.
All right, so in wrapping up, we want to thank you for your interest in Foxborough. We asked you lots of questions. Do you have a question you would like to ask the board?
I have a question. Jay kind of knows this answer, but I'm curious. So I read the town meeting warrant from this year, because I'm kind of geeky and I actually prepared for the meeting. But, so you have a state hospital, right? And Foxborough State Hospital.
Well, we have the property that's
The
left
property
from it,
was
yeah.
the state hospital, right?
yeah.
And so, Jason, you've already built housing on part of it. But the warrant was that you could sell, that was to amend the special legislation, which I'm sure was a transaction with DCAM. And then you had a reuse committee. Do you have any idea? I'm working on the Medfield State Hospital project right now.
Oh, geez.
And so, I like it, it's fun, right? So it's a beautiful piece of property.
It is a beautiful piece.
And the fact that they're going to be able to save those buildings, I'm a history major, but it is pretty amazing that all those buildings are going to be reused. That's the housing. There's no new buildings going up. Those buildings are all going to be reused for
That's
housing.
nice.
In any event, I'm just curious what the thoughts are about what you're going to do with it.
So, obviously, the biggest thing we faced when we had the state hospital going to housing was to find the right contractor who would actually do that kind of a renovation.
Hard.
It's very hard. We got very lucky out of a firm out of Philadelphia who kind of specialized into it. I think it turned out to even be a bigger project than they anticipated. And then we were able to have a new housing that was kind of built around it, that kind of expanded upon it.
Kind of like the Danvers State Hospital.
Yes.
That's what they did up
Yeah.
there, right?
The piece that we were talking about on this particular article was a piece of property that, in the trade with the state on we actually took some land to be built for our joint public safety.
Yeah.
And so we took down dorms that were there, and that's what was built on that. Across the street from it was another dorm complex which was allowed to be turned into retail.
Yep.
So we had like a nice little retail hub that was put in. And then then we had a huge part that was considered recreation, so we had nice fields and stuff like that. And then there was a last piece that was given to the town, which was an auditorium building.
Yeah.
And the auditorium, quite honestly, we've looked at for years and years, tried to figure out ways to use it.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting building, but it is a lot of money to be spent for not a lot of use for us. So this particular idea came up from a developer that basically that it would be turned into, that part would be turned into like a small housing piece with another kind of more medical component to it behind on some additional property. We split the line to give more land to the joint public safety to protect it and its future needs. And that kind of rounds out how the whole state hospital property got resolved.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the whole reuse of all these pieces of property, because they're everywhere in the Commonwealth, right? So, anyway, there you go. Thank you.
thank you. Yeah.
Anything else, Jay, you want to ask?
No, I mean, I get the Foxborough news all the time, because I'm right next door, so
You are a neighbor.
I am a neighbor. Yeah.
And just so you know, we're finishing up. You are our last of the three today, and at our meeting next Tuesday night, we'll be deliberating, and we'll be picking a new town council.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the last thing I'd say on that, this question often comes up. So first of all, we know Pat really well, also a former KP person like myself. We're very friendly. We've done file transfer. We can get up to speed incredibly quick and to, get a team behind it. I know time is short and Pat wants to get on with retirement, so, we can get going.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
so much.
Nice meeting you.
Okay, so I guess,
I've been in those buildings. I worked for the Department of Corrections when they had their
Thank you.
project down
Nice
there.
On Medfield?
Yes. Nice meeting you.
nice to meet you, Jay.
Thank you.
Katie, by the way. Sorry. Nice to meet you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. Thanks, Jay. Yeah, nice to meet you as well.
Thanks, so.
Yep. Do we have to make a motion to adjourn?
We should.
Yep. Want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have to roll? No, Dennis was in the room, so we don't have to roll.